Welcome to the Chainout podcast with your hosts, Jeremy and Darryl.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to your favorite Edmonton area disc golf podcast with me, Jeremy, and your favorite co-host, Darryl. How's it going, bud?
I'm doing fantastic, Jeremy. How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing great because another milestone episode.
We don't like to keep shouting out all the milestones. You know, we get up to 100
we do.
hundreds. Okay, yeah, we do. We can. But I think after this episode, there won't be another a milestone unless we hit, 200 subscribers or we hit 10,000 views, or I don't know what the next number is going to be. But yeah, episode 20.
Yes.
A nice round number. And
don't worry, I can make milestones out of molehills or however this saying goes.
It's not quite that, but
yeah. in the neighborhood at least.
In the neighborhood.
Yeah.
But at least this episode, I'm surprised you're not wearing your Hawaiian shirt because you're getting your weeks mixed up because finally the weather is warming back up again.
Yes, it is. But, Alberta weather, we could talk about all the time because it changes all the time. I was even talking to some people up in Fort McMurray. They're getting snowed on. Just before we started recording, I asked my wife if she was going out for a walk because we like to do that in the evenings. Yeah. And she said it started raining here. So the weather is wacky.
Yeah, it is what it is. But we expect it this time of year. So what do you do?
But it
Roll
was
with the punches.
Yeah, but the weather was pretty decent on the weekend when we got out to play.
Yeah, it was okay. Yeah, it was decent, I guess you would say. Yeah, we got out to play on the weekend again, like you said. We did another Instagram live, so thank you to everybody that tuned in and watched that one. And we did another in a series of videos, what we like to call 3-hole disc dice challenge.
Oh, wow, look at that. That rolled off the tip of the tongue so
been
fast.
Practicing it.
I thought you might have in the mirror or what?
Oh, yeah, every night before I go to bed. I have to say it 10,000 times before I can go to sleep. Yeah, but we got out with listener of the show, Kevin Toppin. We had a good 3 holes with him, and then we ended up staying out there and did the 3-hole challenge live on Instagram.
Yes.
And then we went back to, once that was all done, we thought we'd have a nice relaxing round, and we went and played 18 holes as well.
That's right. And when we did that 3-hole disc dice challenge, thank you everybody who did pay attention and watch it. We had a good conversation with Henley out of Fernie. Yeah, Fernie, BC. So it was great to know we had a listener down there. And as we were playing, Henley asked us a number of questions about Hermitage. Hadn't played courses up here in Edmonton, so we were able to kind of help with that. And if anything could go wrong in that round, it seemed like it did. In 3 holes, every time we rolled the dice, it was, what was it, putter roller, everything roller.
Yeah, putter roller, Anheuser roller, driver roller. Yeah, you name it, everything was a roller. And we had 2 sets of dice, so it wasn't like our dice was loaded or anything like that. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah,
although,
thanks, Mike.
The first round we didn't have too many rollers. But yeah, it just seemed like this week was just all rollers. So there you go. That's another benefit of doing the disc dice challenge is, if you need your roller practice, you're going to get it.
Yeah. And for all our locals who know Hermitage, hole 6, the hole otherwise known as the power line hole or the spider web hole, you can name it whatever you want. But the one that has the 3 big posts and so many guy wires there, Darryl, you're really fond of saying it's 99% air. That's all you have to worry about. You're never going to hit any of those wires. And I think we hit wires and posts 3 times. I think all of us.
Yeah, exactly. It was just a number of hits on that hole. It still amazes me. Like I say, when you look at it, they are zigzagging across your field of where you're throwing, but they're tiny. How does the disc manage to hit them?
Yeah. Well, and you hit one of the wires like dead center. And I was surprised. I was like, oh my gosh, because the noise it made, I thought your disc blew up and snapped in half. Luckily, it was just the sound of the wire. But
I thought you were going to say, luckily, it was just a Berg.
Look at you taking shots at your favorite putter.
Well, if it's easier if you take shots at yourself, right? Rather than other people taking a shot at you all the time.
Beat me to it. Well, another thing, Darryl, I was going to talk about, because I used to run. We know that. I don't want to go into big deal about the marathons. But when you run and you go into races, go into triathlons, all of these things, one of the common things in a player's pack you get is usually a T-shirt. It's like a race shirt. And there's a lot of little rituals and stuff about that. Like, I'm not wearing my race shirt until I complete the race. And even so with that, the last race that I was supposed to do and I didn't run, I had gotten the shirt and I don't think I've worn it yet. I think it's still been in the drawer because I never ran that race. So, but in disc golf, the player packs are usually discs.
Yeah.
Not a lot of clothing. Except for TCO, when we were talking to Carrie Neal, she was saying that if you go into TCO this year, you're going to give them your size when you register, and that you should be getting a sweet hand-eye jersey, was it?
No, Top Link.
Oh, Top Link jersey. Yes, that's right. And so I was just looking recently, and there's still lots of space available. So if you're thinking about going to TCO and you want some gear, but we're not going to make it out there, and I want to look good on the course because league is starting up soon.
Yep.
And I put myself an order in for my first disc golf jersey.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
Well,
so
I did as well, but you go first. What did you order?
You did as well?
I did.
Well, look at that. We're going to look great. Well, what I did was I saw a post.
I look great now, Jeremy, in my Edgar t-shirt, just in case, still available. All nice colors.
Are you sucking up to Tim and Brock and the gang?
Always.
Yes.
But what did you order?
Well, I saw a post by Beast Disc Golf, and friend of the show, Terry Hong, had told us that she was going to have some gear coming out.
That's right. Yeah.
And all of a sudden they posted her jersey. So I ordered it, and I'm going to tell you, they call it the Candy Bomb jersey.
The Candy Bomb.
Yeah. Or, I don't know if you'll get my musical reference with this, but Candy Bomb. I think you had to watch Dazed and Confused to know that song.
Yeah, sorry, that's over my head. I don't get that one.
No worries. But anyways, of course, just like Terry told us in the episode, the jersey is cotton candy colored. It's got some pink. It's got some blue.
Yeah.
It's got her Heiser bomb kind of all over the jersey. In a pattern, just crossing the whole
repeating
jersey
pattern. Yeah.
Yep. And then on the sleeves, on the one sleeve, it has that hand logo that she has for this year. So I'm so excited. I just found out today that it has shipped, and by the time league starts, I'm hoping I'm going to be wearing it, or maybe next episode I'll be wearing it.
Nice.
But you said you got one too. Where did you get?
Well, as you know me, Jeremy, I am prone to late night purchases.
Yes, you are.
Normally, after a little bit of bourbon may have been consumed as well. But this time that I looked at it, so I was just getting ready to go to bed, and probably what a lot of people are doing, what we probably shouldn't be doing. I pulled out my phone and have a quick swipe through Instagram just to see what was happening, and I think it was like 23 seconds. Since it had been posted, I seen that BR Disc Golf put on Instagram like a range of their jerseys that they were going to have for sale.
Yeah.
They had some jerseys, they had some polos in different colors and things like that. And it was one of those things. It wasn't. I don't want to say it was an impulse buy, but the moment that I was swiping through and I seen it, I was like, okay, I gotta get that one. So I did order a nice. So I would say folk. How would you pronounce it? Would you say folk?
Yeah, I'd say folk. That's the one word maybe that we have that we both say the same way.
Right. I've heard a lot of people say folk, and I'm like, no, it's not folk. That's a disc.
That's a disc with an A in there.
Exactly. But a nice, it's like an aqua, like a pale green, mint color, mint green, kind of like a floral pattern. I got the jersey rather than the polo. So, and then, I put a comment on there. Well, that was easy. And got a message back from Brendan the next morning saying, thank you for being order number one. So, yeah, that was an interesting thing. I haven't had an update to say that it's shipped yet, but I think they were coming soon anyway. So, I look forward to getting that in the mail. You'll know when we get it because we'll be wearing them.
We'll be wearing them. Yeah, and I saw that one pop up with that nice greenish folk setup on the jersey and the design. Sorry, that's what I meant to say. And when I saw it, I was like, it screamed out your name. I really liked it. So I think it's going to be perfect on you.
Yeah. Like I said, we'll be looking good this summer.
Yeah.
Catch us out any disc golf course near you.
Exactly. Well, or throw a recommendation in the comments of where we should play, and maybe we will be at a disc golf course near you.
There you go.
Well, We don't harp on our socials, but we do want to make sure you know about them. Where can people find us, Darryl?
Oh, you can find us everywhere. You can find us on Instagram, chainout_podcast. Yeah, chainout_podcast. And everywhere else, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook. Just search for Chainout Podcast and we'll come up. Look for us on Spotify. Yeah.
Yeah. Look for Spotify, Apple, everywhere you get your podcasts.
Spotify, Apple, even Amazon Music.
Yes. And if you like what you're hearing, take a minute, like, subscribe, rate, review, do anything. All of it helps us, and it will help us bring you more content and just get better and better and better.
There you go.
Speaking of getting better, this is the best part I think people have told us about our podcast.
Let's get straight to the guest.
Get straight to the guest.
And boy, have we got a guest. We have a guest, right? We do have a guest?
I don't know. You're the one who's supposed to check. Oh, crap. All right. Let's get there. So tonight we have an amazing FPO on the show. She's been playing since 2015, or at least that's when she got her PDGA membership, and hails from Burlington, Ontario. She placed second at last year's Canadian Nationals. She won the 2023 Canadian Disc Golf Tour on the FPO side. She commentates for Parked Pro. Yeah, are you getting there?
Keep going.
All right. And she's even played in some DGPT events, Disc Golf Pro Tour events. We can't wait to talk to her about all of this and more. Let's welcome Colleen McInnes to the show. Hey, Colleen.
Hey.
Good
How's
afternoon.
it going, guys?
Good evening. How are you?
We are good. Welcome.
I'm great. I guess a little bit later here.
Yes, it is. That's the thing we've realized now that we're expanding out and reaching out and trying to find guests across Canada. There's a time zone thing that actually comes into play.
Yeah, I was thinking about that with your live broadcast. That'll be fun. Checking it at like lunch while you guys are, or like, I guess that'll be actually way later for us. So people on the East Coast
we're saying
there.
we're going to try and do for 7:30, right? That's the time that we said that works for us. So I guess that'll be, 9:30 for you, right?
Yeah, not too bad.
Yeah.
Well, if we get someone out in Newfoundland, though, it's going to be a problem. I'll tell you that much.
How are you doing this evening? Did you manage to get out disc golfing today?
No, actually, I went to physio today to check in with my physiotherapist. I broke my foot. It was in September last year. So I had a broken bone. It's like the 5th metatarsal or something. And when I went to go check it out and like go for recovery, the bone wasn't fusing together. So it took months longer to heal than it should have.
Right.
And I was in a boot for like 3 months and not walking on it at all. So it caused all my leg muscles to go into atrophy. And then I had to, so now I'm doing physio to like build up all my leg muscles again. So it's been a wild ride.
Yeah. I did know that you broke your foot, and I knew that was earlier on or later on last year. But I was wondering whether you actually recovered from that or not yet. But it seems like you've been having a little bit of a tough time recovery there. So hopefully everything works out for you in the future, and you can get back out on the course sooner than later.
Yeah. I am back out. I have a tournament this weekend at one of our shorter local courses. So I was just checking in with my physio this week to make sure it's all good. And I'm going to see her next week as well to make sure it didn't go poorly. But it's just the 2 rounds in one day. It's a lot to go back to.
Be a lot of standstill throws, I should imagine, then, will it?
Yeah. It's a nice short course. So I kind of, there was one earlier, like 2 weeks ago that I didn't go to because it's a longer on a golf course kind of tournament. And I was like, I'm just going to let myself recover and not try to, I know myself. I'm too ambitious.
Yeah.
You're going to try and do.
Did that broken foot come from disc golf, or how did it happen?
Yes and no. It's a silly story. We were down at New York State Championship where AFDO was, and we were just like getting there, talking with people, and when we opened the trunk, a bunch of stuff fell out and some bottles smashed. So I went to go throw them out, and when I was jogging back, I was wearing slides, like sandals that you slide on, and my foot slid off the side and it just broke. And I was and I was like 30 feet away from my partner Chris, and I don't know if you know Bobby Jones from New York. He and Chris were like, "Oh, you're fine. You probably just did some, you rolled it, like you'll be fine." And I went out and played, and I played 2 rounds there, and I shot pretty good too. I was like in the lead, and I shot above my rating way above my rating, and I birdied a hole that I didn't even birdie at AFDO. So I was like, this is great. Okay. But I couldn't really walk. So there was a 3rd round on the Sunday, and I was like, yeah, I can't put my shoe on today. I don't think I'm going to go. And Chris was sweet enough to drop out and drive me to the walk-in clinic and get it x-rayed. And they were like, yeah, it's broken. But I was lucky it was like lined up properly. It wasn't like offset. So
right.
Did take longer because of where it was a Jones fracture, so it's like right up where the joint is, so it has to be immobile the whole time, and hence the leg issues now.
Mm-hmm. So how did you manage to get were you just like swallowing painkillers for fun at that point, or was the pain not so bad? Like, how did you manage to get through 2 rounds?
I think honestly it probably fueled me a little bit, but it was 100% the ladies that were on the card. I showed up late to the 1st round because they put us on the farthest hole, like they didn't know, and I walked out there for a shotgun start, and I'm like limping, and they're like, "Oh, I thought you weren't going to show up," and I'm like, "Oh, I hurt my foot." So throughout the round, they helped drag my cart up hills and stuff, and they were really, really great about it. So I honestly I couldn't have gotten through the day without them, but that was it was definitely not recommended that you keep playing if you're injured. Definitely just drop it, because I did anyways. So
it almost feels, Darryl, like we have a theme going on here, because last week there, Colleen, we spoke to Brian Fries, and we were asking him about nationals because he had hurt his foot before the final round there, and now we're talking to you, and you had a foot injury at a tournament as well. So hopefully this isn't a trend, but there's 2 guests now that have.
Oh, and Paige Pierce too. I kept getting all those comments about, especially around Halloween. I would dress up as Paige Pierce because I'm like limping around with the boot on, and I had a cool cart thing that I could kneel on, and so I went to a bunch of tournaments, but didn't play, and just heckled friends and said hi to other people and had a good time. But I had a little rolly cart that I could zoom around on, so it was fun.
Nice.
So don't worry about golfer's elbow, Jeremy. Everyone should be worried about golfer's foot.
Exactly, Darryl.
Well, I have to say there is some truth to it maybe being about disc golf, because where I broke it, it's like the end of your foot. When you turn on it, I had hit a few fronts of tee pads were lined with wood. And when you hit that and you're turning and it doesn't let you turn, you kind of roll over on it. So I think it was overall a stress fracture that I kind of just broke eventually. So be careful about that. Make sure you're really going on your heel, because that's the last thing you want is to hit that toe on something and you don't turn, and donezo.
Good tip.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to take a quick pause here, and I'm looking in your background, and is that a Tragically Hip poster I see behind you?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Well, we're in good company, Colleen, because if you want, I'm just going to twist my camera.
Oh, amazing.
And those are Tragically Hip posters from the 2000 tour.
Oh, amazing. Yes.
Yeah.
So I got that. I saw them at Canada Day in Toronto, and it was amazing. Just like one of those, I'm sure you as well, we grew up on that stuff. So yeah.
Definitely amazing.
That was a housewarming present for my parents.
Oh, that's awesome.
Also my sponsors.
Of course.
We'll give them a shout out later.
Yeah.
Well, so you are in Burlington, is that correct, Colleen?
Yeah. Born and raised.
So,
and I moved out of Burlington to Kitchener for a few years for school, and then moved back. So literally born and raised. Yeah.
Nice. Well, I asked because I'm from London. That's where I was born.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So you're like real close.
Yeah, really close.
Yeah.
And now that I've started disc golfing, when I've gone back to visit, I'm always trying to pick up more courses while I'm there. And the last time I was there, I was lucky enough to pick up Christie Lake Conservation Area. And I'm like, that's got to be right in your backyard pretty much, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. I just actually posted a video the other day on Instagram about that course. It was like the last snowfall. I don't think we'll get more snow. And it looked so beautiful. But yeah, that's honestly one of my favorite courses too, because a lot of good memories early on of me playing, and a lot of the reason why I love disc golf so much is the community and that course. That club is awesome. The people there, definitely one of my early beginnings. Have you ever played St. Julian?
Yes, in London.
Yeah.
I got to play that, but I didn't have a lot of time and it was busy on the weekend, but I did get a good 9 in, but there's like 27 holes there, hey?
Yeah, they have one hole that they do an angry August or something. They do as hard as they can. Safari layout to like crazy stuff. And they have one hole that they put into all their tournaments where they combine 2 holes, and it's like 1,000 feet, and it's like water on the left side, like the creek that's there, and then a path on the right side. And there's like the tall grass is all and it goes all weird in the fairway. So you're just trying to huck it as far as you can safely. And it's a crazy hole, but a fun course too.
Yes. I think next time I'm down, I'll try to catch up with their league night maybe and get there. But you know what? We're kind of getting a little bit into your disc golf origin story. And that's something that we do on our show, if you've seen any of the episodes. And we want to know how you got into disc golf, but just asking you is boring. So, and Jeremy likes to have fun. I got a good sense of humor. Well, do I got a good sense of humor, Darryl?
You like to think you do.
So at first, Colleen, I was starting with superheroes, and I would come up with a superhero and ask our listeners to guess who I was referencing, because I thought maybe the superhero's origin story was close to the disc golfer's origin story. But just last week with Brian, I started to move into movies, and I had a real good time with that. So I think I've got a action movie related origin story that might be really close to how you got into disc golf, but we'll find out. And I got a script for it. So you ready?
Oh, I'm excited.
Maybe you were just living your life in one of the 12 provinces and territories of Canada, when the annual Disc Golf Games Selection Committee came to Burlington. You were randomly chosen as the Ontario FPO tribute. You'd never played disc golf, but had thrown discs in the forest and were getting quite good at it. You used this skill to take out all of your other opponents at the games, and you became known as Disking Jay. Now, that may not be how you got into disc golf, but why don't you tell us your origin story?
Oh, that was so good. I can't top that. It's not as glamorous. I definitely feel like I was sacrificed to disc golf. I've played so many sports, and we had some friends we did like all these things with, and Tough Mudder and stuff like that, and we just kind of fell into disc golf, and I was like, yeah, it's fun. Like, it's better than just hiking, right? At least you're like hiking around and hucking things. But then, like I got dragged along so often with our friends that I ended up just like falling in love with the kind of I wouldn't say competitive side. I would say more so like the traveling community side of like going around and seeing people, and, like going all over your province to see those friends that are like 3 or 4 hours away, that they come to your tournaments and that kind of stuff. And that just got me hooked. But yeah, it was definitely a transition from Ultimate, but I wasn't super heavy into Ultimate or anything like that. And just, I think the community that really got me. And I mean, now more so worldwide, like going all over. So I'm so excited to see some friends that I saw a few years ago and friends from BC and going back there. And it's just so exciting to have that, like you meet people on the course and now you have like a pen pal somewhere that you just randomly message, hey, sweet job at that tournament, that you like randomly creep them on and stuff like that. So it's great. Yeah.
And what year was that? What year did you really start getting into the disc golf?
So I have a Ace Race disc from 2014. That was like my first tournament, but it wasn't sanctioned, right? Because those are just see if you can ace, which is kind of a weird tournament to start with. And then I did play I signed up for the PDGA in 2015. So it's 9 years this year, but I guess come like October, it'll be like 10, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I really didn't get as competitive, I think, until like 2016, 2017. I was like racking up more and more tournaments every year. And then COVID hit and it was like, fell off and then building up again. So yeah. Last year, I think I was like 15 or something tournaments that I played. And I was supposed to play like 5 more after, but because of the foot. And so it would have been like the most I've played in a year, it was like ramping up there and really felt good towards the end. So hoping to bring that back.
So then when you got started, you played a little bit of Ultimate, but then was it just kind of friends that were out there playing and they suggested, or did you just kind of drive by a course and say, what's this? Or what really got you on that course that very first time?
Yeah, it was friends who played Ultimate, and we were on a team together, and I was living in Burlington and my partner was living in Brampton, and he had a bunch of friends there in Brampton we were playing Ultimate with. And they were like, hey, there's this course, White Spruce. We're like, oh, cool. And then we found out there was a course, Bronte's, like right down the street from me. So then we were like, oh, these things are all over the place, and kind of started like traveling around. Like we'd go hike all the time. We'd go geocaching, do like portaging and camping. So it was like, oh, this is a great sport that's in nature, which is like what we were always kind of gravitating towards. So yeah, it was a kind of gradual love for it, of like it was fun as like a hike, and then it was the community, and then it was like the whole traveling and aspect of the sport and competition and watching the discs fly.
Yes. Yeah, we always talk about that. It's that first time that you either hyzer flip a disc, or the first time you have a real good S-turn flight out of a disc. That's all it takes. After that, that's all you want to do, is do that over and over and over again.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw a video of Juliana Corver doing an interview, and she was talking about like that's how she fell in love with the sport, and I was like, that is exactly how I feel. It was such a great description, and it's just why we keep going back, watching those like perfect shots.
Yeah, I know for me, when you get that nice S flight, I think for me, it started that when I first realized how I could putt, I felt like I leveled up. And then when I first tried, I was trying forehands and I just couldn't get a forehand to work. And then all of a sudden, you get the perfect flick and it goes where you want it to go and it glides perfectly. And you think, okay, I just leveled up again. So each time you level up, you kind of get more, enjoyment, more love for the sport, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and you're right about when you get that shot off and you're like, oh, that's what it's supposed to feel like. Like that felt right. That was right. Yeah, the whole body connects.
Yeah. So I guess, Darryl, would that make sense? It'd be like Colleen McInnes, level 97. Darryl and Jeremy, level 6. Is that kind of where we're at?
That's about where we're at, yeah.
Oh, I'm sure you're selling yourself short.
Yeah, we like to poke fun at ourselves, sometimes at each other too.
Well, if we're talking forehands, I'm definitely down there with you guys at the level 6.
Okay. Yes,
it's coming
we're
along.
Almost as good as a FPO.
Yeah.
At least in one aspect.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah. Well, Colleen, you were talking about, building those relationships and those pen pals. And even just recently, I noticed that when I was on Instagram, because we had 3 of our Canadian FPOs down at USW DGC. And with that, like, I was checking out their Instagram feeds and following along with how they felt about their rounds, because not everybody's on coverage. So you kind of follow through Instagram. But the one thing I noticed is we're getting very familiar with our Canadian MPOs and FPOs, and we're trying to help our listeners get there. But it was everybody, whether it was West Coast, East Coast. You're seeing, Gabby Lee's there, and we're seeing comments from Karen Martell, or we're seeing comments from Irina Shekova, or we're seeing anybody else, Terry Hong, Zoe out in our area. And it's just awesome that even with a country as big as ours, the FPOs all know who each other are, and they all are supporting each other. And it's awesome to see.
Yeah, it's really great. And I think it's tough for me this year because I was so excited about nationals. We heard everyone heard whisperings that it was going to be in BC, but the people I talked to at Raptors were like, nah, not here. So it was like, oh my God, it is BC. And then, not that it's a bad thing, but we've got the Diameter Open happening here, and I'm a little sad because the Nationals sign up is looking like pretty West Coasty. And I was hoping that it would be, this big monumental moment of like a lot of women coming out, because I mean, having it in the East Coast for so long and then having it here was great. We really had a good turnout here, but then, I know BC has such a competitive FPO field, and it draws in all those people that were coming over here from Edmonton and Alberta. And so it's like, I just was so excited about it, but maybe the next one, but it still is, I think, the biggest field we've ever had. I think it's 17 or something like that. Which I think is the biggest FPO field ever. And it was phenomenal going to BC Open last year and meeting all those women. I like the field we have out here is amazing. And like Kat and Chantel and Alicia, and I just met Irina this past year, and we've got a lot of up and coming women as well who are really moving up in the ranks quite quickly. And so it's so nice to meet those women that I just see on Instagram and get to like see how they play. And watching Sophia play was amazing. She was, I did a practice round with, I think I watched Casey's hole or something, and then I played with Sophia, and I swear on that hole, it was an insane downhill turnover shot. There's this giant rock at the bottom. It's a huge drive on a par 4, and she smashed the rock that the MPOs were skipping up to. And I was like, wow. Oh my God, this is amazing. Because it really, I think I always say when women are asking about when to move up and stuff, it's not so much that, it's like when you're ready, because when you go and play, like I was so excited to go out there and play with all them, and watching that just inspires me to improve my game and work on it. Because when you see it in person, and it makes you feel more like you can do that. Like I see these women that are achieving so much in like power and accuracy, and I'm like, I want to hone in on that. I'm watching what they're doing, and I think that whole inspiration to move up should come from that kind of direction more so than I've won or I haven't won or whatever. But it was really inspiring going out there. So yeah, it's been a great FPO field build up in Canada over the last, I think, 4 years has been really booming now.
Definitely. Well, also too, Colleen, with that, where was I at, Darryl? I'm really good for this too. I'm really good for kind of being the filler guy when it comes in, and I have this great thought on my mind and then it slips out of my mind, but I know exactly where I am. I just had to talk that long to get back to it. So as you were saying about getting better and getting those longer throws and going after that as an FPO player, now I know your foot would have kind of limited you a little bit here, but in the off season, is there anything that you're doing to try and prepare? Is there certain things that you practice on that gets you ready for the season?
I know, like, and everywhere is different, but for the most part in Canada, our off seasons are kind of crap for outside. So we are lucky enough to have like some indoor spaces to do putt clubs and stuff like that, and occasionally go to like a soccer dome or something to throw. But I'm not super focused on driving in the winter, and then really honing in on the putting, because we have quite a few putt clubs around here, and kind of trying to go to as many communities as I can to hit them up. And it's really helpful to go into the season like super confident with that, and not so much repetition putting, but we have a really great one in East End of Toronto that has stations, and so every station's different. You're doing like straddle putts, or you have like forced forehand, or you're going uphill or downhill, and so working on a lot of putting. And in the winter, I did I think it was quite a few years ago now. I slipped on a tee pad and I fell and smashed my knee. And it was like my right foot slipped out, so I smashed my left knee. So I was like, I throw a backhand anyway. Oh, well. And I took a month off and I was fine. It didn't break anything. But it was just like very eye-opening to the cares of winter disc golf. And, you know, it's more so to go out and continue your love for the sport than I think anything else. And so I just focus on that putting. And then in the spring right now, I would normally be going to do more field work, and just not as much distance field work that I think a lot of people, when they go, they work on different things. You don't really know when you get to field work what everyone else does, but I'm more so focusing on one position and how all of my discs fly when I'm throwing it exactly the same. Like trying to do a very consistent flat shot over and over and over again with all my discs. So I know when I'm going up to a hole, especially as like a primarily backhand thrower, if I'm choosing this disc versus that disc, when they're so vaguely different, that I know exactly why I'm choosing that disc and that I'm confident in that choice. Because I think most of the confidence in disc golf isn't necessarily coming from like, I can do this. We all think we can do it. That's why we do it. It's the confidence in your bag, in your choices. And when you beat yourself up for throwing a disc that you knew wasn't a good choice to throw. So I use my fieldwork to really focus on that and do it. I honestly, not as much as probably I should, but a few times in the season, so that, you know, in the spring when you're coming out of, and you can actually plant your foot, and then towards the like midsummer part where you're probably like getting up that power and really feeling good because I'm like playing tournaments every weekend, right? So by that point, I'm like, all right, which discs do I want to actually take out, and maybe find a few distance drivers because these ones aren't working, or switch up this. So, and then, you know, towards the end of the season in the fall, kind of shift my bag because everything gets a bit more understable in the winter. So take those understables out and everything kind of shifts over one. So, and maybe take a few out that I don't want to lose in the snow. So there's a lot of my field work and work on that is focused on being confident in my choices and not beating myself up because I did something that I knew I shouldn't do.
You kind of touched on it there a little bit. Obviously, it's going to change depending on the weather conditions and things like that. But overall, through the season, how many times do you think you actually change discs out of your bag? Like, do you get to a point where there's a disc that you used to throw all of last season, but you started using it this season and it's just not working for you? And so you think, okay, it's time to replace that disc. Yeah,
I think sometimes, like, primarily what I am looking for in discs is ones that don't... like they're within a certain range of beating in. Because if you get a disc and you hit a few trees and it starts being immediately a bit different, you're like, I don't really trust that. We'll maybe find something else. So like the consistency of the disc, playing with it for, you know, a little while and ensuring that it's like there is a big thing for me. So I don't often put in a new disc right into my bag. I'll take it to like club and tag matches and then be like, I like this. I'm going to keep it or not. And that's mostly where the changes come from. And then, you know, like I think I've had some of the discs in my bag for like years and years. Like, I think one of the discs in my bag I've had for 6 years, and like, one of them I've had for like maybe 4, and I kind of don't really change them too often. So it's like, a disc has to like really wow me to make me want to change something. But I have a very open eclectic bag of so many different brands.
Yeah. So that's an interesting point because speaking about leveling up, we had a local disc golf store owner, Brendan McInnes, on a few episodes ago, and he mentioned about having multiple discs of the same mold. And I'd seen people that have, they say, oh, I bagged 3 Firebirds, or, shout out to Tim Plamondon, or 7 Firebirds. Yeah. And I knew that once you beat the disc in, they get more and more understable. But it wasn't until he said to me that the reason that you keep that disc in your bag or that mold in there is so that every time you throw it, you've got that same feeling in your hand, whether it be a brand new disc that's going to be slightly more stable versus a disc maybe 5 or 6 years that's going to be slightly unstable. So that, and then obviously, speaking to you that has all this experience, 9 or 10 years of playing disc golf, I have a question for you regarding those discs that have been in your bag for such a long time. Is there a point where a disc will get so beat in that it won't beat in anymore, and like that'll be its end of its life? So you'll know that, okay, this disc is always going to do this, no matter how many more trees or how many times I throw it, it'll never get flippy to the point where I have to remove it altogether.
Yeah, I think it depends on the disc. It really is like different for every company, and even within the plastics of those companies. So, like I have a Thunderbird that I've beaten in really well, and it's not going to get any flippier. It hasn't in the last 2 years, so I don't think it will.
Right.
Sorry. So I don't think it's so much like that it stops beating in. So much as like it maybe only has like a certain amount that plastic does. And then, it's just dented all over, and then it's just that. But yeah, I think there is also something to be said about like I have an Escape. That's one of my older discs, and it's like an Escape is understable, but it is very reliably understable. Like it's not gonna turn over crazy because it's a pretty decent weight, so it's not like a really light disc. And I think that can make a huge difference if you're throwing like a 164 disc versus like a 171 or 173. Those are gonna maybe have more consistency on how much they beat in, and the lighter ones are gonna maybe change, I think, a bit quicker. So like that Escape beat in, and now it's just what it is, but it'll never hyzer back for me. But sometimes it will go straight, and I can hyzer flip it really nice. And like, It does a lot for me for what it is, but it wasn't that for me when I first got it. When I first got it, it was like my S disc, and now it's not that. So, but it's hard to replace now. So if I lose it, I mean, and there is like part of your field work is like I do have other options to replace it. That's not exactly that disc, but it is pretty similar, and maybe I won't trust it as much, and I'll have to like figure it out. But it's not. I'm not going to like not have something. So that is like something that to think about as well when you do your field work. Like, what are your backups? Is there something that's like similar enough that you could kind of replace it with that and not care?
Yeah.
When you're in a tournament and you're out of town and you drop that favorite disc in the middle of the water hazard and it's not coming out, you got to have something to back it up, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. I actually played, I think it was Knock in Northern Ontario. We were in Thunder Bay, not nationals, but a few years ago, the first time I went, and I threw my only distance driver in the water. And I was like, this is a huge golf course. It's like crazy long. And so I went and bought 2 more, and I threw them for the tournament, but I was like, I hate these. I'm so upset I lost that disc. And then like a few months later, maybe even a year later, I was looking for new distance drivers, and I took those 2 out. And I was like, why do I never throw these? I love these discs. And now they're like staples in my bag. So it's funny like how you end up putting discs in your bag and where you get them from. But
and how time changes with them, and Darryl's talked about that because like as beginners we get a lot of discs and you start buying them because you think you need this, you think you need that, when you realize later on that you should just actually throw the disc you have and get used to it. But we get to that point where now there's 48, 50 discs in our collection, and some of the ones that we didn't throw at the beginning, it's like, pull those back out, because as we've leveled up from level 1 to level 6, maybe at level 6 we can actually throw that disc, right? So
yeah, that's so true. Yeah, and it's funny where they come from, but it's all, I think, first impressions. When you get a disc and it doesn't do well for you, it's so hard for you to want to throw that disc. I know people who are like, I hate justices because, they couldn't throw very far and it was terrible for them. And that's why I took mine out of my bag. And now I'm like, I need to put my justice back in, because now it's a more useful disc when I'm snapping it harder and know what I'm doing with it more. And I have a tendency to throw overstable discs really hazard for no reason. So it's a thing I had to get over.
Nice. Well, Colleen, I want to move us along to the Canadian Disc Golf Tour. And last year was the inaugural year. And one of the things about our podcast is that we want to focus on Canadians. We want to talk to Canadian pros, Canadian disc golf store owners, Canadian tournament directors. That's kind of where we are going to put our content. And so last year with the inaugural Canadian Disc Golf Tour, you actually participated in 3 different events, and we were hoping that we could kind of run through them with you, get some of your thoughts and feelings, because we got to see some of the Park Pro coverage, but in some cases it was one round, and maybe you were on that card, maybe you weren't. And Nationals, we were lucky enough to get all 3 rounds, which was awesome. But can we hit you with some questions and walk through those events?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Darryl, you want to start us off with the first event?
Yeah, so the first event there was the Foxwood Open. It didn't start the way that you probably had it drawn up in your mind, but sorry, you can't tell I'm reading this off the script, can you?
I got it for you. Well, Colleen, what we were doing was we looked at the Foxwood Open, and when I was looking at your scorecard for that first round, I saw that, overall the round looked pretty good, but it was just that first hole, but we didn't really know what happened, but it looked like it didn't start out exactly as you probably drew it up at home, hey?
Yeah. That first hole, I gotta say, golf courses are so beautiful, but it's like, bittersweet. Like everything has the other side of the coin, and it's always windy. It's such rolling winds over those hills. So we had like really, really fierce winds, the whole tournament really. But like the first hole, you're going straight downhill, and there's OB on the sides, and it was just that whole thing I was saying about choosing the right disc. None of that. It was like, this is what I normally throw, and it just went like, nope, and pushed down right away by the wind into I think it was not OB, it was hazard. And so then you had to throw from in there. And then just mistake after mistake, and there's OB behind the hole. And it was bad. So, and then you sometimes, you live and learn, because the rest of the round some of those other holes might not have been as good if I wasn't so pissed off about that one. So, it's funny, and it goes that way. But that was a huge win for Chantel. I know she really wanted to win that event, and so it was cool to watch how excited she was, and that coverage, and it was her and Chris did a great job. And me and her and Sandy have been playing that tournament for a few years now. So I know she really wanted that win. So it was tough. It's when she's so good, and when she wants something, she's going for it. So you kind of got to be more perfect now and don't make mistakes like that. But yeah. Yeah.
I was gonna say, when you see her in the field, then okay, I got to bring my A game, hey?
Yeah. Well, and she's touring so much now. It's exciting to see her. You're like, oh, Chantel signed up for this one. Cool. So she's coming back for a few of them, which is awesome. But it's so cool to see her on coverage too. Oh man, it was really neat to live score, watch all those girls down there, and like the competition. It was 100 FPOs there, and like, not to mention, I don't even know how many overall, but hundreds of women down there for all the divisions, and we had so many Canadians spread across different divisions. It was really cool.
Yeah. Well, can I ask you there then? Let's stick with Foxwood for a moment because I'm going to need these tips because Darryl, one of the very first times he and I actually were at a tournament together, he caddied for me one round. He was volunteering and he caddied me for me one round. And we had a hole that was a raised hole with OB on the left and then just long grass on the right. It wasn't a big deal. But right off the tee, I hit first available or I was out of bounds immediately, so much so that everybody on my card said, you're just going to have to tee off again. So I tee off, then I hit the tree, I think is what happens. And then I throw OB. And by the time we're done, I've taken a 9 on this hole. And it was supposed to be, I think, a par 3. So now for me, that kind of shook my mental game a bit. But you ended up going through Foxwood Open and then really recovering in the next rest of the round in the three rounds. What was your, are you able to let one bad hole just wash away? Or what are your tips when that happens, especially the first hole of the tournament?
Yeah, I think, and like, certainly the women of years past will tell you that I have worked on this because, as much as we'd all love to say we came into disc golf perfect, we all beat ourselves up too much and sometimes, let it get too outward. And so that's been a big goal, is to not be a Debbie Downer on the card or anything. So that's been a goal for quite a few years now, to just like get better at not letting it affect how I interact with other people and like anything, because like it is affecting other people when you're sad. Like, I don't mean like swearing and upset and punching your bag, but like when you're sad, it's like depressing playing on a card with you. So, that was a big deal to like get better at that. So now I very much, I was talking to my friend about this the other day. I don't do a goal for the round for score. I don't particularly like practice rounds where I'm doing that because I don't even really like to putt on practice rounds, just because I don't want to have an expectation of like, I was here on my drive and I should make this putt because I made it then. And especially not the day before a tournament, but it helps to really think about the course as holes instead of a hole 18 or however many, because realistically, I've birdied so many holes that I was like, I didn't think I could birdie that hole. I didn't know I could throw that far. Like, I didn't think I'd miss all those trees. That's crazy. And like, it's kind of like, putting no expectations on it so that you're pleasantly surprised. And that way, when you're recovering, you're not going, I shanked my shot and this is supposed to be a birdie hole. And it's like for who? Because there's plenty of people who shank, especially there's people on your card who shank their shot and you're all upset about it. It's like the expectations are just too high. So I try to like eliminate that as much as I can and just go into a hole where, the last hole didn't matter, or I don't even think about it. I mean, certainly it gets harder to do the closer you get to the end of the tournament because you do care, right? And you don't want to like be like, I don't know the scores, but you don't want to have that expectation that like I have to birdie this because, or oh, thank God they didn't because I need to. Like, it doesn't really matter if you're going to beat them; it's because you're going to play well. And one of the things that helps that a lot of people take for granted is walking up to a hole and saying, oh, I hate this hole. It's like the worst thing you can do to yourself. And it doesn't even seem like a bad thing to do because you're like, oh, but I always do bad on it. That's why I don't like it. Or I don't like how they changed it. But it can really get into you where you're just like, your demeanor is already diminished. And so then you're not throwing accurately because like so much of your body needs to be the same for your shots. So having like that, it's almost like it doesn't really matter because I'm going to do whatever I can. And that's it. So that helps, is to not go up to a hole and be like, I hate it, but be like, oh, I'm really excited to try and actually make this island, or, oh, I hope I get to pass the OB this time. Like, and it's more positivity and more of like that mindset. And like I said earlier, anyone listening or watching to this, I'm not perfect, and you're not either. So don't worry if you don't do it every time. The more you do it, the better. And the better you get, the easier it is to do. So it's growth. But I think a lot of people go through it silently because we all want to pretend like we're okay.
Right.
We're just not sure what to do when we beat ourselves up like that. And a lot of it's just switch it to something else. Switch it to what you're excited for, or an exciting conversation with someone. Like, get excited about something and make that your priority instead of making it all about what you have to do, because you don't have to.
Yeah, as my wife likes to tell me, Darryl, with that, it's like, I don't have to do anything. I get to do these things, and I need to remember that, right?
Yeah, exactly. No, I was there was so many points that as you were talking then, I was thinking, I need to interject with that. But
so sorry.
No, it's all good.
It's just you're giving us such good content that there's so many things to talk about. It's amazing.
And it's such good talking points, because Jeremy and I, whenever we go out for a round, or whenever we go out, like we say, we played in Wetaskiwin at a Battle 6 tournament. When we approached it, we said, okay, we're going to ignore the pars on the course. We're going to look at the hole and say, okay, it might be a par 3, but for me, I think this is a par 4. If I get there in 4, that's a par. That's what I should be getting. And then we'd look at another hole and think, well, this is birdieable. I could get a birdie on this. So we actually went out hole by hole, and it worked better for us because we wasn't putting those expectations of the course. Like you said, we weren't saying this is a birdieable hole, we have to get a 2, or this is a par, we have to get a 3, because our pars may have been 4 or 5 in some instance. So it was good for us to have our game plan set at maybe a lower expectation than what the course is playing. Yeah. So I wanted to touch on there when you said that you don't really go out with any expectations about what you want to score. Like, do you still go out with some sort of game plan?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, like I said I don't like to putt. I like to do speed practice rounds, and not necessarily for fast pace, but for the sake of, I'd rather drive twice on a short hole, or drive like a general kind of not super hard drive, but then the upshot's really difficult. I might throw 2 or 3 different discs to figure out what I want to do. And I think that's more useful in a practice round for me. So it's more, I'll have like that kind of game plan of where I want to land and what I want to do. And as soon as you go off that, that's where it's important to drop the expectation of I need a par. Like, if I'm on a par 4 and I shank my drive, I'm like, okay, let's just get somewhere better. Like, not necessarily a pitch out, but I'm no longer concerned if I get a birdie, a par, or even a bogey. I'm like, let's not hit the tree right in front of us again. Let's get somewhere good. Yeah. And kind of drop all that expectation. So yeah, like hole by hole, there's certainly like landing zones and spots. And I talked to my friend about making sure the course as well, because there's a lot of rules that you need to be aware of, like the debris if something is an obstacle or like part of like a feature of the course, or if you're allowed to move it, like all those things. So that's kind of more what a practice round for me is for. And then having some expectations. Just don't want to be like, well, I didn't shoot 5 down and I'm so sad, and I shot 3 down, and it's like, that's silly. You shot great.
One disagreement that Jeremy and I have is that Jeremy is fond of setting goals. But I'm of the opinion I don't like to set goals, because if you hit those goals, then you have to set more goals and you have to keep striving to hit those goals. But if you set a goal and you don't achieve those goals, then you feel like you've let yourself down a bit because you didn't hit your goal. So I'm not a big goal setter. Jeremy is a goal setter, but between the two of us, we kind of work through it. But the other thing I wanted to touch on there, which is another thing earlier on in our first episodes that we used to do, and we'll get back out there again once the Alberta weather cooperates with us. But we used to do local course reviews where we would go out, we would say, for anybody that hasn't played this course, maybe from someone from out of town, what are the aceable holes? What is the things to look out for? Things that maybe that you just doesn't show you. But one of the things that we used to talk about is, okay, and which is our nemesis hole? So exactly what you said. We all have, Jeremy and I have these nemesis holes that we don't like on these courses, and every time we've played, Jeremy, whenever we walk up to, I'm thinking of hole 17 at Hermitage. Oh, here we go. This is Darryl's nemesis hole. So instantly, before we even walk up there, I'm in that mindset of, I don't like this hole. This is going to go bad for me.
The self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to, hear a positive person's take on it, that, just put that last hole, the last time you played it, out of your mind, because this time you play it, it'll be different.
Yeah. And I mean, you can think about your goals, though, a little bit less, like, numerically, I guess, and more consistency wise, because like I've been doing this a lot at putt club, where like I started the putt club season with a broken foot, but once I took the boot off, I was like, all right, I don't want to get any zeros, because you do 5 putts on each hole, so right. I should get one of those. And then eventually I started doing that, and then I was like, okay, I want to do this every time, and then I did. So then I was like, okay, I want to get no ones, and started kind of consistently doing that. And then you kind of naturally build up, instead of it being like, because our putt club, you add up all your points, I could be like, I want to get 80 every time or 90. But as soon as you don't hit that, it's really sad. And at least with something like this, it's like, I only got 1-1, even though no ones was my goal. At least it was only 1. And then, for that hole, thinking about it more as like, I never birdie this hole, right? But I occasionally bogey it and I occasionally par it. So if you are going to it, this is my nemesis hole. I'm never going to bogey you again. It's like, I got you, like, got your name, right? And so it's a bit, it's harder to do. It's harder to like think that way, but it's kind of more, I guess, a competitive mindset. But you can think of like goals differently, as like, it's kind of like you were saying, like leveling up and unlocking achievements.
Yeah.
And, that kind of thing.
Awesome. I think so. A couple episodes ago, we had Miguel Alvarado on, and he was one of the most positive people we've ever had on the podcast. Like, nothing seemed to get that guy down. And now Colleen is telling us how to approach these holes differently and our different mindset. I think this podcast, Jeremy, is being a little bit like therapy for me. I think I'm gonna be mentally prepared for when we get back into disc golf again.
Well, you know what, Darryl? The way Colleen handled Foxwood Open, that is actually your method and your display of how it works. Because even after that, I know you said Chantel won the tournament, but somebody we know in this podcast came second place in that tournament and really brought that around and competed for the rest of the tournament. And congratulations on getting that second to start off your CDGT tour.
Thank you. It was my biggest goal has been to play consistently. So it's always tough. I always feel like it's like the first round or the last round that I'm playing awful, but getting those consistent ratings is like always the goal. And it's been a struggle, but yeah, it was was very satisfying to at least redeem and do better and keep pushing.
Yeah. Well, and then what we saw, Colleen, is a lot of the players, because the Canadian Disc Golf Tour was spread across the country and it was, a tournament out west and then a tournament out east, nobody got a chance to play all of them. I think maybe the most played by a player was 6, was it? Maybe, Darryl, 5 or 6? We'd have to
think look, 5 by Casey, yeah.
Yeah. But we did see that you decided to make a trip out west for your second one, and you did go to the BC Open, as you kind of were alluding to earlier. What drove you to decide to come all the way out to the West Coast?
Oh, it was definitely Team Canada. The Craig and Stu and all those guys, they were all talking about how great. Like, I mean, I have my brothers out there. I've been to a few clubs there randomly when I've been out to visit my brother, and I've my friend Brianna out there. But meeting all the people at on Team Canada, and then we were talking about our home, and they were going on and on about like the duck golf, and they have this Riders Cup kind of thing where they do all the clubs versus each other, and it's just they talked a lot. I know, so I think Brian mentioned Pender Island of the Pender Bender and stuff like that, and it sounded like such a whole province of people that I wanted to meet. So we were very convinced, and hit up a few other things. Saw my family, Chris's friend, saw Brianna, went and played this tournament. So it was like a lot of good reasons to go, which is, we were gonna go back, and because Nationals is there, and then we're going to Australia. I was like, I don't have money for 2 BC trips this year. So hopefully I want to try and get out to Alberta next year. I'm missing it this year because I'm already signed up for a tournament, but for I think Falcon's flight at the beginning of September.
Yes.
I think that one everyone's been talking about. I think that's another Canadian disc golf tour, at least this year and last year. So it's the driving force is people for sure.
Nice.
And it was the way Craig talked about it, right? The passion he had for running that big of an event, Canada's largest, which was a crazy amount of people. Huge pro purse. There was a huge FPO field, some traveling people, which was cool. And so, yeah, there was a lot of appeal for that one. And I'm so sad I'm not going back out this year.
So, Jeremy, I just wanted to interrupt you for 1 second. I wanted to challenge you here. I said there was one, but there was 2 players that played 5 events on the Canadian Disc Golf Tour last year. One MPO, we already mentioned him, Casey Hannemeyer, but there was an FPO that managed to get to 5 events. Do you know who that was?
I think I do know who it was.
Okay.
I think it was our one and only Heiserbaum Hong.
It was Terry Hong. Yeah, she played in 5 events as well. So, yeah.
Gotcha.
2 people played in 5.
Can we go back to the regularly scheduled episode, Darryl?
You can now, yes. Just I'm the in-house fact checker.
There you go. So, Colleen, out in BC there, one of the things we've heard a lot about, and it just looks so good on coverage, is that Raptors Knoll course. So you got out there, and I'm sure, did you play that before, or was that wasn't the first time you'd been on that course, was it?
No, it was, but I did play a practice round and everything. But it was my first time there, and it was so beautiful. Like the Falcon hole where you can see the mountains in the background, every bit, if not more beautiful than what you imagine, because you look around and there's more mountains. Like it's so wonderful there. And the course was challenging. It was a lot of fun, I think, unique and memorable holes.
Right.
Yeah, definitely well designed.
Yes, and it shows so well on coverage there too. It makes sense why that course is always top at the end of the year of Canada's best courses. But where they had you guys finish that tournament was on that pop-up course, or I guess they call it the Horsey Coursey, I think is what they call it.
Yeah. It was a Escutarian, I don't know, whatever that is, horseback riding place.
Equestrian? Yeah,
Equestrian, that's it. Yeah. It was a lot more challenging than it looked. Like if you watched the coverage, I feel like the course was harder in person.
Yeah, well, it did look like there was open shots and such, but one of the things, and I was just rewatching some of your footage there from that last round, when it came to some of those short par threes, you were making them look easy. Like they looked like they had some hazard or maybe OB just to the side, but you weren't scared of it. Like you were parking discs under the basket that last round. It was amazing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, there was that one death throw downhill. It was like OB all right, and it was downhill, so you're not going to land nice. And I was so relieved to throw that well. But the course was challenging, but I think one of the harder things is the par. We had a really particularly hard time as FPO because sometimes we're put onto holes that are kind of just outside our par range, but Sophia made it look easy, so she justified them.
Yeah, it just takes that one player apparently to justify it. But I know that for a fact that there needs to be more work by course design and tournament directors to make FPO holes or FPO, changing the basket and the tee pad, pulling them away, not letting everybody get propagated against each other, not affecting the women's ratings. And we kind of talk about that wherever we can to shout that out. Hopefully TDs are listening and saying, find a way to let the MPO and MA1, or however you want to do it, play on one par and get everyone else on another par, so that it is actually more accurate. Because even as Darryl and I think, as we get better, we look to try and throw as you throw. And that's about, if we could ever do that, we would be beside ourselves. That would be level 100 for us, is throwing like Colleen throws, right? So
yeah, I think it's getting better. And I think part of the reason why it's getting better is the Disc Golf Pro Tour has, or, you know, the Pro Tour in general, has stepped up very much in designing, like kind of demanding that there be better designs. Like, I know Sarah Hokum is a big person to talk about, and Zoe Andyke, about the courses and how they fit the FPO game. And I mean, we're not Tatar and Pierce and all those people throwing an L Hansen, like throwing 500 feet, but we're just like, you know, in the same situation in our game in Canada with the MPO here, where, you know, me going up against some of the 1,000 rated guys on the same par is kind of crazy. But then it's very hard to make those changes. And sometimes, like, I was just talking to a TD for an event in a few weeks about the pars, and it's so hard to have someone par the hole, like get a 4 on it last year. And like most people are bogeying it. And so we're like, okay, let's make that a par 5. And then, you know, in the very same hand, it's like another hole that's kind of an in-betweener. It's like, it's kind of, it is a par 4. We should all be able to 4 it, but, you know, for whatever reasons, the field was not as consistently doing that. And so then it's like, do we change that and make it an eagle opportunity, or leave it as the same par? But like the key thing about that TD even just reaching out, because he knows I've played the last few years there, and I'm sure he's reaching out to a few other people as well, but actually asking the questions, I think it's very difficult for women to want to speak up, because a lot of women, especially that I've talked to, and some of the conversations and polls I've done in our community, is they don't want to sound like they're complaining. Like, they want to be grateful for the event and the TD, and they don't want to sound like they're ungrateful for anything. And there's always that, whenever you talk to a TD after, you're like, oh no, it was a great event, but this would be wonderful if you added it. And like, a lot of TDs want that feedback. They're very receptive to it. I mean, if they didn't just have someone else yell at them about something, but right. But yeah, it's nice to have a lot of TDs looking at that. And I think it really does start with the Pro Tour having made so many changes recently. With the women don't go out anymore and play the same layout as the men. They often are playing different courses, but even if they do play the same course, there's different pin positions, there's different tee pads, and we don't have the same facilities here. But it's nice that TDs are open to the discussion and looking at that as something to consider. What's difficult is, you know, with like a 8 or 13 person division, you know, we can propagate ourselves, but it's not useful. When there's that small of a field, you're really not going to have that much growth in the ratings of FPO. And comparatively to, say, for example, like when I was playing FPO a while back and there was no women around to play, me and Sandy used to go play MA1, and you know, we wouldn't win MA1 or anything, but like, we're competing in that division. We're not going to last at all, but it was a better transition for us as to what skill levels. So, you know, I think as much as possible, I personally, maybe this is a hot take, I think the MA1 should be playing the same layout as FPO. And I think if you're an MA1 and you're upset about that, maybe you should go play MPO. We could sure use a lot more MPOs, because, you know, for these guys, there's no way they're touring. They're not making a habit of going across Canada if there's 23 people in the division. It's just not sustainable here. So really the biggest thing we can do to grow, not grow disc golf, but necessarily, because it depends on what you think about, but to grow the pro side, the media side, the allure of sponsorship and sponsorship within our communities is going to be because we have more MPOs and FPOs. We have bigger pro courses, and are kind of on that competitive edge with what's going on in the States. Cause really we have a tour that we've started, which is amazing, but it's not sustainable for us to be flying all around Canada to do this. And I'm not even sponsored by a plastic company. I've just got local sponsors. So I'm not getting paid to do this. So that kind of sustainability really comes from a deeper field. And best thing we can do is inspire those MA1s and FA1s. If you want to play the same layouts, move on up. Get into that pro like field.
It. Hot take or not, it makes sense to me.
Yeah. I mean, they're talking in PDGA about doing FA4 and MA4 and FA5 and MA5 as offerings in tournaments, because it's not FA5 is not even in the drop menu, right? Like, so I mean, if they want to do that, I think that's nice for newer events and flex starts and stuff where you can really make people in the spot that they feel comfortable. But if we want to grow that pro side, all of the AM1 and FA1 just move up this year. And all the AM2s and FA2s will move up, and we'll just have a huge pro pile. It'll be great.
Yeah, that would be awesome for sure. Well, let me get back to BCO because I don't want to leave it alone without kind of finishing it off. So you played really well. You had Sophia on your card at the end. I think Christy Lee was there as well. Like, it looked like you guys had a great card, although I'd heard it was pretty warm and hot and maybe a longer round than you would have liked. But
yeah, when we actually practiced for that tournament, there was like an hour and a half wait on hole 1, and you could like see the people on hole 2, and there was like 20 people standing there at 1 and like 20 people at hole 2, and just waiting for people because that hole was like around a bend that was blind, and so you're pitching up to the opening and then you're going across to the hole, and so it was just such a backup. And it was better in the tournament, but it was hot the whole week. It was very, very dry, and we were like running back for water as soon as we could, because I think at least with the course we ended on, it was a loop, like kind of a weird turn where you'd come back around 11, and so sending all the caddies or anyone around like, hey, go get water and come back. And they had water out, but I think it ran out because it was just so many people and so hot. And yeah, so it was a wild end. I mean, when your hands are sweating like that, hopefully you have like some sort of grip bag or whale sack or something.
Well, and good on you, because on coverage, of course, they don't show you guys standing around the whole time, but they did, show that you guys were playing well. And then at that one, you came out with the 3rd place finish out of that tournament, which was fantastic.
Yeah.
And, going up against Sophia, like you said, with that big arm, and she's kind of really shown up on the scene here this last couple of years. And, I think there's a lot of good things to come out of her, but to be 3rd in that tournament, going all the way to BC in that heat, in those weights, that's pretty impressive to me. So goes with your consistency. 2nd in the first tournament, 3rd in the second tournament.
Yeah. And I felt really good about the consistency of playing there. Like, I didn't feel like I had a trash round or anything. And those girls were so good. And I mean, I played with Christy the year before in Croatia, so I knew her game well, and I knew she was going to be really hard to beat. So I had my expectations realistic, and I was really happy to podium with them. And I think it's funny because when I came home, everyone was asking, like, nobody had seen Sophia before, and everyone's like, oh, who's this girl? And I was like, her rating's a lie. She's so good. She needs to play more events and it'll be real. Cause like you see her now, right? She's 930 something, and it was so quick, but it wasn't. She was already that good. Her ratings were just like, you have a bad day on a tournament, and when you haven't played that much, it really impacts your ratings. So she's more where she should be now, but she was amazing. So it was so fun to play with. Both of those girls, all the ladies there.
Fantastic. And then after that, you had your last event that you played in the Canadian Disc Golf Tour, which was, in my mind, from watching, because I got to see all 3 rounds, and so did Darryl, the most exciting one, and that was coming back to Thunder Bay to play nationals.
Oh yeah, that was, and it was cool because all 3 rounds filmed there.
Yes.
So you get to see the whole adventure, and it was really quite an adventure. We had a good field, and it was really fun to play with Raven. I had never met Irina, and I had never played with Raven. I don't know if we had maybe met before, but I never ever played on a tournament or anything with her, and she was just so much fun to play with. They were just laughs the whole time. We had, I think, Kat on our card and Karen on our card, and it was a great group of women out there. Just the whole time, you could feel so genuinely everyone cheering so much for each other. It was just amazing.
When you talk about Raven, she's not Canadian, came up from Minnesota, and we try to talk about Canadians, but Raven is just so amazing and so funny, and the stuff that she puts out there. She's come up on our show at least 1 or 2 times, Darryl. We've had something to say about Raven and what she's doing.
Yeah.
That was good.
She's got
so
such
now
a
you said you've been
out.
Yeah, positive. Well, you said you'd been out to Thunder Bay before. So did you feel that kind of helped you for that tournament? Because right from the start, you were in it. You were in it to win it, and you were looking to try and get there. So
yeah, I think because I had come out, so I went out 2 years before that. I had a year in between where I didn't go, and then so it was like going and playing a practice round and getting ready for it. I was like, oh yeah, I remember this whole. Oh yeah, oh look how, and like some of it was like, look how much farther I'm landing than I was, because it was a big gap, and so it was, I think, more exciting. But also like a lot of people really local to me came up as well, so I definitely felt a lot of, not pressure, but like a lot of people talking to me about my round, how I was doing, where I was positioned. Going into that 3rd round, like how far back I was. Oh, how many? I'm like, I'm in 4th, and they're like, how many strokes? I was like, like a lot. So it was a bit stressful, and then I was just kind of trying to focus on that whole night. It was the amateurs had their ceremony for awards because they were done the tournament, and then we played the next day. And so the whole night I was going around. Whenever someone would ask me, I'd be like, oh yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think I'm a few back. But my intro video, like what should I do for when they do the intro for the filming? Because I was like trying to make it like more exciting. And so then when I went and did that the next day, I did like a silly hat thing, and I was like, I was so pleased with myself. I was like, that was so funny. Like it set my whole round off so good, because I was like so happy and joyous and like didn't care and like whatever, right? So it was just like, oh, I was dying laughing. But I think that's awesome. Like I said, the best way, just make it exciting.
Where did that come from? The discs on the changing of the hat, was that just something that you just thought of on the intro, like on the spot, or did you kind of have to think about it?
Oh no, I spent all night talking to people about what I should do. I think someone suggested that. They were like, try on a disc as a hat. So I like tried different discs and then put my hat on. And like kind of it evolved throughout the night, but there might have been some like soda pops involved in that conversation. But yeah, it was a amalgamation of everyone's ideas, and it just something fun. It's like, I met Sai Ananda when I was playing Worlds the first time in like 2018. She spent like the whole round looking at flowers and bugs, like, oh, look at this mushroom. Like, and she gave me like a friendship bracelet, like everyone on our card. Like she was just it was so not about, I mean, you want to win, but it was so not about her beating you. It was so about her having a good time and playing well and just feeling good. And so, I mean, there's lots of people that inspire you to do that. And I think she was probably one of the first people. And that same tournament, I met Brianna Ainsley and then Raven this year, like playing with her, and how amazing her attitude was. And it kind of helps you along your way to like find those silly things that you love about it and what you want to make the important part of it.
Right.
Yeah. It's those things that you can take away from the event.
Well,
yeah.
and Colleen, you know, if Cy kind of gave you a little bit of an idea of nature and bugs and flowers and that kind of thing, I don't know if it rubbed off quite as much, because I do recall maybe there was a hole where there were some rocks around it, and possibly, you know, the Indiana Jones in you came into play. Was
Oh
there
my
a
gosh,
little bit
yeah.
of snakes or something going on at the tournament?
Yeah, it was like sunning out on the rock. And so if I had kept going, I would have like stepped right on it, and I just lost it. I'm not a good snake person. I had two brothers when I was younger. They went and got a snake and found it in nature, and my parents were like, "Great," and they were like, "We're gonna keep it as a pet," and they had put it in a bucket. So I'm the youngest, so I was like, "This is awful," and my parents were like, "We don't want to like tell them that we're not having the snakes," so they like let it go, and then they said it escaped, and I was terrified for like months. I was just like, there's gonna be a snake in my bed. Like it was awful. And I mean, I have never gotten over the initial sight of a snake. Like I know they're not gonna do anything or care about me.
Yeah.
If anything, they'll run away. But like it's that initial like freak out that I can't do it.
So
And
it's like you got to there and it's like the escaped snake is back and it's going to get its revenge for us letting it go or something.
Yeah. Oh, like in Harry Potter, the snake's mad that it was in captivity. I had to get Raven to get my disc out too, because I was just like, I can't go over there.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've heard people say that they have an irrational fear of things, but I think being scared of snakes or fearful of snakes that's not irrational at all. I think that's completely rational.
Yeah, agreed.
It's right. It's in our DNA. That's like our survival.
Yes. Yeah.
So at Nationals there, you were playing well, and you were consistent in those first 2 rounds. You shot a +6, and I think you shot another +6 the second round. But with Raven playing as well as she was playing, she was pulling away. And as you went into the third round, you were 8 strokes behind to start that round. Now, when you got onto the tee for the final round, did you think you said you had done the hats and you had some motivation, maybe a couple pops the night before to loosen things up. When you went into that third round, did you think, hey, I got a chance at this? Or did you say, I'm just going out for fun? Or what was your thought on hole 1?
Yeah, definitely the latter. I was like, maybe I can come like third or second, like maybe I can pull back. But that big of a lead is really hard to lose, right? Like it's very hard to catch someone, because when it's a few strokes, you're like, yeah, I could do really well on some holes that I don't normally, or like maybe they'll have like 1 or 2 bad holes, but it like 8 strokes is a big swing to. So I was really going in thinking like, let's like podium better, like let's do better than this. And I think it was surprising how well I did, because like I know I said I don't really have expectations for a score, but I've never shot negative on that course, and I don't think any FPOs have, and so it was like, it was shocking to get back and tie Raven, but I was more shocked that I shot negative, just because of the implications of how well that round was. Like I didn't think I could shoot that on that tough of a layout, so that really felt super positive and really good. And so going into the playoff, I was like, it doesn't even matter. Like, this is amazing. I can't even believe I'm here. Like, it was more of like, not nervous and not feeling pressure. It was more just like I can't believe that I'm here and have this opportunity. Like, I'm so lucky that I even played that well. So, ironically, if anyone wants to go back and watch that playoff, the last hole is like, it's based off of the signature hole at my home course. And I missed the island, and I was so upset. So Yeah, it was a heartbreaking hole, but not because of that. And then, tried to get the drop zone shot in on her, so give her a little pressure, but it didn't work.
Yeah. Well, anybody who hasn't watched it, to me, out of all the Park Pro coverage, and they do a great job, like Matt with those intros, I'm like, sometimes he's got me in tears. Sometimes he's got my heart just full of pride for the country, whatever it is. But the boys do a great job on it. But I think for sure the FPO final round of nationals and watching that happen and watching you catch up and tied and go into the playoffs, I was so excited about it. When did you think in that round that you said, hey, I'm not 8 strokes behind, I might have a chance at this? What was that turning point for you?
I have to count back the holes. It was
that's okay.
17,
I know when
16,
I think I've seen it.
13, I think. There was hole 13. I can't remember if I think I just parred it. It wasn't like a big deal, but I think Raven took like a 6. And so I was like, oh man, that's like a lot of strokes. And I think at that point I actually purposefully looked at the score and was like, oh my God, I have like a fighting chance here. Like I had no, expectation. And I hate to like be like, oh, well, but it wasn't just that one. Like I did play a really good round to get to that, to have that affect anything. But it was just like, I didn't really think too much about it until probably that hole. And I was like, oh, it's like a really good round. Like I'm doing what I wanted and like moving on up. And thankfully, like I had my buddy there. He was caddying for me. Mike Marinero, he's a Olympic figure skater. He skated for Team Canada, which is really cool. So I had an Olympic caddy, and
nice.
He was he had like, very simple kind of responses to me and like making me feel very calm and happy and excited. And I told him at the beginning of the round, I was like, the best thing you can do is just like talk to me about nothing. Like, anything that like, not necessarily not about the round, just anything. Like just, I love talking throughout, and obviously I love talking. But it helps distract me and just make me feel like, there's someone else there who is like not upset. So I don't need to be upset. Look how happy they are. And like, we're just chatting away, and like puts that expectation on me to like, let it all go and not care so much. So he was really great to help me when I looked at it, to be like calm and keep going and like, don't worry about it. And then towards the end, they were like, I could just see in his face, he was like so excited. And I was like, that I was feeling like that last hole on hole 18, I was like, oh man, it's like a really good round, I think. So
yeah, it certainly was too.
Yeah, it was very very exciting.
Yeah, no, that was fantastic. And and so Raven comes up, she gets the first place, but we can kind of say, you got second place, but you were the first place Canadian in that tournament. So congratulations on both.
Thank you. Yeah, not my first time at a nationals doing that either. So we've had a shutout, I think, for sadly like 4 or 5 years maybe, of Americans winning our nationals. So yeah.
Well, maybe this is the year. Maybe the Western group will be able to fend off the Americans.
I don't know. I think there might only be one American signed up, so we're all gonna be gunning for her. Not her specifically, but just someone beat her. But exactly. It's a funny Canadian fact there, but yeah, very 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 excited for this year's nationals. I'm very excited. It's likely going to a Canadian woman, so and it'll be an epic battle.
Oh, it's going to be awesome. We're hoping to get out there, Darryl and I, and witness it all firsthand. That would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So
it's going to be awesome.
Colleen, now that kind of wrapped you up for the Canadian Disc Golf Tour, and you were sitting in first place. But there were still 2 more events to come, and you didn't participate in them. But when we were looking, things got a little close because we mentioned her a couple times, but there was Falcon's Flight and Golden Eagle left. And Terry went out and grabbed some points in Falcon's Flight. And then she went out and almost won Golden Eagle. And it looks like she took it to a playoff from what I could see. And had she won the playoff, she would have taken first. But ultimately, that playoff loss made sure that you were the first FPO winner of the Canadian Disc Golf Tour. Darryl, cue the cheering noises. So with that happening, did you pay much more attention to it at all? Did you know Terry was kind of creeping up on you as the tournaments were going by?
Yeah, I didn't realize that Nationals was going to be more points, because I think that's ultimately what the factor was, because she played a lot more events. But yeah, I didn't realize until that tournament happened, and then I knew the tournaments were happening, but I didn't realize about the points, like her creeping up. And then there was an article that came out on PDGA that someone had written about that, and I looked my number up to see my ratings update. And I saw there's an article that I'm tagged in, and I was like, clicked on it, and I was like, I didn't even go to this tournament. Why am I tagged in this? And then I scrolled down and I saw, and I initially, like, I really did feel so bad, because I was like, oh my God, like, I won this without even having technically been there to the last tournament. So yeah, it was a funny kind of way to find out. But like, really awesome kind of accomplishment. I think, like I said, I would love for this to take off and be huge. I would love to see people touring and hitting up all of them. I think it's such a fantastic idea. So yeah, that was really cool to see that, to participate in it, to be lucky enough to get to go to 3 events and meet those guys and do some commentary for them. And I just think we're so lucky to have people like yourselves going out there, like those guys going and filming these events and traveling, and it's crazy to do them. So yeah, it was a really cool thing to be part of.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, you say that Terry played in more events, but even though 3 events you played in, a second, a third, and a second, that'll get you points.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially when one of those is, like you said, the 150, the 1.5 times for the points as well. So yeah, that'll do it.
Definitely.
So we're still waiting for Andre and Jesse and Matt to announce. They said they've been working on that Canadian Disc Golf Tour. So hopefully when we find out what those events are, we can see what you're going to play. But one thing we want to ask you is, we're going to be doing a fantasy draft that Darryl and I have kind of put together. And Darryl, I think, is actually looking for maybe some sleeper FPO picks, maybe from the East, that you might be able to drop. I'll take my headphones off for a minute. Maybe you can tell him.
So I'll give you a bit of a kind of a guideline on what we're doing. So actually, Jeremy has taken his headphones off for anybody that's listening.
Pick Irina.
Irina, yeah, I know. I think that she could be a sleeper pick.
Caitlin Shot.
Yeah, we're picking new players every tournament. So we're not just picking players and then sticking with them through the whole season, because as you said, some people don't get out to the East, some people don't get out to the West. So we're treating every tournament differently. So we'll be picking players from the East and we'll be picking players from the West as well. So we're a little bit more familiar with the West Coast players. So if you, like Jeremy said, you've got your headphones back on again.
Okay, I'll take them off.
Yeah, no, Irina, you mentioned her, and we've seen her in the Park Pro coverage there as well.
Yeah, and she's been traveling a lot. She went out to BC. I know she's got, I think her schedule-wise is busy in the summer, but her, Caitlin Schatt, huge up-and-coming kid. I mean, you probably heard about his performance at Nationals as well. And for him to be, I think he was like 16 or 17 years old and, shooting like the round of the tournament, really. So like there's we got a lot of like really young people coming too. I know out in that area, especially BC, they've got some young kids coming because of the collegiate system, right? And Spartan Disc Golf is doing a team, and we've got Redeemer College out here. So a bunch of these guys and girls like Rebecca and Leah Dawn are playing and just crushing the dream of, like, I couldn't imagine going to a school scholarship of disc golf or even having a disc golf team in my college. Like, that would be, and then the, kind of the luck of their age, going to a school that offers that, but then also, those schools are very lucky to be welcomed into the American Collegiate, and now are nationally ranked in America, which is huge for them. If they, when you think about people going out on tour, they have the most incentive being able to have kind of exposure that, you don't get locally, and then be able to use that and leverage that for sponsorship and be able to make a career out of it so much easier and quicker than I think people grinding on their own dime and living out of a van on their own dime. So I think that's one of the biggest ways disc golf is going to grow. We have OFSA, our provincial sports for high schools, and they're doing disc golf this year, which is insane.
Awesome.
So any Ontario people listening there, if you know a high school teacher, get them to get into OFSA this year. Grow that sport.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I know we've spoken to Tim Plamondon, the president of the Edmonton Disc Golf Association, about what their plans are to get disc golf into schools and junior programs and things like that. Like you said, that's what we want more of, right? We want more people playing the sport. We want more people moving up those divisions. We want to make room for the newer players to come in from the bottom, sort of thing. So, yeah, that's the only, I know me and you, Jeremy, we've talked before about we're kind of like the COVID generation. I came in a little bit after Jeremy, but once you play the game and you get hooked on it, you have that feeling of, why didn't I know about this 10 years ago, 15 years ago? And like you said, kids nowadays that are in college and getting into play, like, if only I knew about disc golf back then, Jeremy.
Yeah. If only.
I could be level 10 by now.
At least 11.
So now, Colleen, at least 11, exactly. Now, we do have some more to talk about, but we are kind of taking a lot of your time. So we just want to do a time check with you. And how are you doing? Do you want us to kind of wrap it up, or do you want to go right into American? You're good? Okay.
Yeah.
We know you're at a later time. We don't want to keep you up too late.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's okay.
All right. Well, Darryl, why don't we go into the American Flying Discs Open tournament? So Colleen goes down to New York to be in a DGPT event?
I did want to interrupt you just for 1 second.
Okay.
I wanted to go back to this while we were talking about the CGT. Is that on your mind for when you're picking tournaments? Like, are you picking tournaments because you're thinking these are going to get me points? These are the events I want to play in, or is your upcoming year based on local tournaments? You have favorite tournaments you want to hit? Like, how do you plan out your year?
I don't know how it is where you guys are, but it is getting ridiculous out here where I can't even tell you. I'm probably signed up for like 10 or 15 tournaments already, maybe closer to 15. And like tournaments nationals, right? But like tournaments in like all throughout the year. It's so weird. And I think one of the things that I talked to them about last year was I actually messaged them when I saw the tour last year, and I was like, who are you? What are you doing? Is this the real thing? Is this like, where'd this come from? And they were like, oh yeah. And I was like, oh my God, like, what's your schedule? And they're like, oh, we're going to release it soon. This is what I've been waiting for. And and then, so the thing is like, they haven't been producing a schedule early enough for me to like actually plan out based on that. But that is ultimately what I would like to see. Because I think that, like I said, it's easier for us as Canadians to tour here. We're getting more opportunities with manufacturers will now give you sponsorship and allow you a visa. Like they'll say you're working for them. The PDGA is giving out visas now as well. So you can go down there now, but you really, you know, you really are, you're just going down to be an American for 8 or 9 months. So it would be nice to tour in Canada. I think that's ultimately my goal is, I would love to do that. Now there are many other people making that happen that are not me, but the best, I know I've really struggled because I want to do more for the sport, but the best thing I can do really is to be there and have an FPO field. And I'm not great at Excel. I'm not an accountant. I'm not good at getting sponsors for events. So, you know, like the best way I think I've been able to deal with it and rationalize is that like I'm at least there and showing up for the field and promoting the sport and that kind of stuff, and you know, being as available as I can to help. But I would love to see them more organized. No offense at all, they're doing a great job. But where they release it maybe in December, maybe January would be good
before
as
you
well,
start planning, right?
Yeah, and like I said, like there's tournaments that are just all over the place, and I'm looking at Disc Golf Pro Tour. What can I do this year? What can I not do? You're having to buy a $500 pass to be on the Pro Tour at all right now. So like, I looked at it. It was going to be $900 American for me to go to one tournament, and I was like, So I'm going to just wait till Friday. And I'm going to try and sign up for the wait list on D-Glow because I can't even get in. It's already full with just the Pro Tour passes. They haven't left any open spots. So that's kind of hard. And so I'm looking at that and our Ontario schedule, the New York schedule, like trying to coordinate what I'm doing around here. And so it's hard because then I looked up, someone was talking about some tournament, and I looked it up and it said CDGT, and I was like, oh, Canadian Disc Golf Tour. And I was like, I didn't even know, is there a schedule? And I looked at their Instagram and there wasn't. They've announced some of the events, but not their whole schedule. And I don't even know if Foxwood is one this year. Like, I don't know. So I'm excited for them to get more funding from TDs and make it more affordable for them to do this, because that will open up to them kind of being able to commit more time and more scheduling and look ahead of time. You know, it's so hard for them to get TDs to want to pay for coverage. And then, you know, they're leveraging like having ads and stuff like that, which is that's so good because that's the way that they're going to be able to break even or make money. But it's hard to convince TDs of the value. And I can't tell you how many people I have had tell me that they watched my round because they were going to play there. They were going to play a tournament there. And that's, I mean, there's lots of fans out there and people who want to watch, especially with people like Chantel who have a big media presence. But, you know, you get all your friends and locals watching this stuff, but people go and rewatch that because they want to see the course again for the next year. And it's so valuable, the work that they do, that they're exposing so many amazing communities and courses out there. And I really hope that people get more on board with it and support it more. I also hope, you know, our national board, our NSO, will get approval soon so that we can get national funding and hopefully put national funding towards that, towards high school and college programs and get more kids out there. But, you know, that'll be when we're playing Masters, right? That'll be a few years.
Yeah.
But that's the dream.
You touched on it there, and exactly what we spoke to Zoe Lorenz-Boser. She ended up going out to Raptors Knoll with the University of Alberta, and she watched the coverage from the Park Pro Boys to see what the course was like. And yeah, it kind of took her a bit by surprise that what you watch on coverages and the way that the MPOs were playing it isn't exactly how easy as a course that she thought. But yeah, no, exactly. And I know you've had some conversations with the Park Pro Boys, Jeremy, about, you know, when are they going to release their schedule? When are they going to release it? And obviously they're working with their TDs. But maybe this is maybe it's too late this year, but obviously they can start to work on it for next year. And to Jesse, Andre, and Matt, get your schedule together, get it out early, because then you'll be able to, we'll be able to get the tour set out. Everyone will know where they're happening. They can plan their year better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, they're doing the groundwork right now. They're building those relationships, and that's the hardest part, is getting people bought in. So yeah, definitely.
I think what we do at this
love.
point what we do at this point, Darryl, is we do the classic technique when you have kids and you need to tell them something that's maybe not the best news. First thing you do is you say, Park Pro Boys, the coverage you guys did last year was amazing. We're loving every minute of it. People are watching it. It's fantastic. Then we move into the second part and go, you need to get the schedule out earlier because it's just taking way too long. And then we finish off with, because if you do, you're going to have people like Colleen who are going to go on that whole tour, and it's just going to help get things bigger. I don't know. What is that? Is that the crap sandwich, I think, where it's like good news, bad news, good news?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think they know.
Yeah, they know. They definitely do. Okay, take 2. American Flying Discs Open National Disc Golf Pro Tour event. Colleen goes down. Tell us all about it.
Oh, it was amazing. I actually played the tournament blind. Wow. Yeah, it was a choice. We didn't have time and ability to go practice everything. So, yeah, it was great. But I also played the first round, and I was walking up to the tee pad, and I was like, yeah, the cameras are here for the card behind us, right? And they're like, no, they're gonna do both cards. It's a pro tour event, right? And I was like, oh yeah, I knew that. That's great. So that was a little. I mean, I've been on lots of filming locally and all that and everything, but it was just a bit more stressful in that moment to tee off and be like, oh, everything's getting filmed today. Because it's different. The Parked Pro guys are not in your face looking at the tier strolling down as you cry about your shot, but they're in your face, I love let's get closer, and you're like, oh my gosh, I want to turn away. So it's really weird having that kind of coverage, and that was fun. I definitely made the most of it. It's weird because it's not super appealing to go back and watch live coverage. So I went back to watch it, but it's my round. So I'm they'll cut back and forth, and then I'll stop paying attention and be like, oh yeah, wait, did they show my card again? Because they cut back and forth during the live. And so I didn't know how much they showed. And I was trying to scroll ahead and be like, oh, did they show this on this hole? The whole time I was just goofing off crazy. I was every time I could, I would hold up something local and be like, oh, Canadian women's disc golf tour. Oh, look at that. And then I'd be like, oh, look at my home course stamp. And just trying to show off everything I could and get people back home.
Did you put
excited.
Your hats back on as well?
Yeah. Ooh.
I heard you on another podcast. There was a bit of an interesting story with eating some fruit.
Oh yeah, we had and that was part of the goofing off too. I was getting a little too jokesy with the guys filming, and I kept being like, "Oh, you should do this, you should do that." I was like, "You should film this," and I turned to them, and me and Holly were sitting on a bench together, and she went to go pull out a banana, and I pulled out an apple. And I looked over at her, and she's like, oh, you have fruit too. It's a great snack. And I was like, yeah. And I was like, oh, hey, you guys should film this and then be like, which snack do you prefer on the course? Get a still shot of us or something, right? And so the guy goes to film us, but then Holly is looks over, and she's like, well, my mama always told me not to eat a banana like that on film. And so I can't remember who it was, but someone was like, oh, you should eat it sideways. I've always wanted to eat it sideways. And so she turned it sideways and started eating it like that. And I guess they thought it was good enough. They cut over. It was a good lull moment. And they cut over and showed Holly eating that. And then when we were walking up the fairway, we were laughing about how funny we are. We were walking up the fairway, and one of the camera guys, because they have headphones in, told us, oh, they're calling it Holly's forbidden bite or something, forbidden banana bite. And so then it made us crack up even more. We were just dying at that point. Like, we had to take a moment to compose ourselves to throw and stuff. But it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of jokes. And I think anytime I've ever talked about AFDO, I've talked about like meeting Holly I've never really had any kind of impression either way of Holly, but like playing with her in that tournament, there is so much not on film that you don't see the players do, that like, Tatar and Pierce and Ella Hansen and like all those girls are just like, Holland looks so like focused and stern, but they're so funny and they're joking the whole time in the background, and that often doesn't go on camera. And you get like your quirky people that do quirky things and they'll throw that in, but it was so fun to play with her and really get to know her, because she was such an amazing card mate, like just all around very cheerful, very focused when it was her turn, but cheering at the right moments. Sometimes be like, that sucks, like just she was so genuine and personable, like Raven was. And I think that was one of the highlights of that tournament, was just how awesome it was to play with all those people.
Yeah. Well, it sounds too like, from what you were saying with the cameras and that, took a little bit of getting used to. I'm sure it also, when we were talking at the beginning of the interview about trying to keep your composure, you kind of have to when there's a camera like right over your shoulder. But it sounds like it actually maybe helped your performance, rather than with some people it makes them a little more nervous, because you had such a good tournament and such a fun time, it sounds like.
Yeah, definitely. I think it was funny because we'd have like people in the background who were like friends or people who were waiting for their round or done their round and watching, and fans. Like Chantel had a bunch of people who knew her because she's so well known on YouTube and stuff. So it was cool to have people like in the background just cheer and stuff. So
right.
I am always a talker, and I am like the biggest dad joke, corny jokes kind of person. And so like, it was fun to shank a shot and not be like sad and turn around to three other girls. It was like fun to have a group of people there, like an audience, to be like, oh, well, that sucks. And everyone's like, haha. And you get to break that tension. And it's like kind of an honor to like laugh and joke and make those people laugh all day. So it's like being a little bit of a comedian there. But that helped ease a lot of anxiety. It was like having such a great community out there. And like there was actually quite a few women from their community, because it was the pro weekend, who were other local women's club that came and just watched and caddied and spotted. And they donated, their women's league donated cups for all the women. And it was like part of our players pack, which like as a pro, you never get anything. So it was like, it was so nice that they like the women went out of their way to really support the pro women that were coming through. And so all weekend we had people like coming up and being like, because there were the Canadians there, and they all are like, oh, we hope you come back. So they were so welcoming and so nice. And I know Kat ended up making such a good connection out there that I think one of her sponsors is out there now. So from that tournament, awesome. She met him there. So like just really cool community. And that's like kind of what happens when you go out and get on the tour, or even get on like that big disc golf scene and go around to those events and meet new people, make all those friends.
Well, Colleen, when you mentioned there the dad jokes, I think Darryl, if Colleen comes out west for a tournament and doesn't want to play FPO, do you think maybe we can talk to the TD and get a special exception made? Because if you've got the dad jokes, you'd fit right in with the MA40 group that we play in, because it's almost like there's a mandatory amount you have to tell per round.
Oh man, that's so funny. I have actually made so many jokes about that, because at club I always get put on like the like MA40, like I was called the old guys card, and they're always the best, like the best attitudes. Like competitive, but only if it's so that I can make a joke about someone. Like, cares about their score, but only because they can hold it against their buddy. Like, it's just such good rivalries and so much fun, kind of back and forth. Yeah. I identify as
an
MA40.
accurate description.
Yeah. And the other thing too, Darryl and I say, is everybody gets our references too. We don't, and if we say something like, try to use a hip new word, which is no longer hip and new, like sus or no cap or something, we all just laugh at each other.
Oh, that's so good. Oh, that's great.
All right. Well, I want to touch, and we'll keep this one pretty quick, but if there was anything you wanted to tell us about your trip to Worlds, because both Darryl and I, as I'm planting the seed again, Darryl, this is for him. Next year is Masters Worlds is in Minnesota, and I'm trying to get Darryl on board so that we can head down to it. But you went to Worlds this past year. Any big highlights or things to tell us that will help convince Darryl to go to Worlds next year?
Oh, it's unlike nothing else. It's so fun. I know where we went in Vermont is particularly one of my favorite places to play any event, like because I've gone to Worlds twice there, and the Green Mountain Championships there, they host a lot of other events, but it's particularly amazing because of, in Vermont, it was walking around the complex with like people everywhere. And you're like, especially for Pro Worlds, I was like, oh, cool, there's this person and that person. And like, people playing shuffleboard and like just mingling with all the people. It was really, really surreal kind of experience. And it's part of why it's amazing is because everyone's on the same level. Like you don't necessarily know who people are sometimes, and you don't know the rating, and you walk up to someone, you're just chatting with them, and then turns out they're like a 3-digit PDJ number, and you're like, holy shit, you're like a pioneer here. This is so cool.
Right.
Like, so it's really wild, the people that you can meet just having put yourself in that kind of place. And like, it's like everywhere with disc golf, as soon as you meet people and start talking to them, like everyone's so like-minded and like comes from the same place of really just wanting to go out and enjoy nature and people and do something fun and something that they're proud of. And the one consistent thing, no matter what community you go to, is the storytelling that you see. Like, people come in from their rounds, they're like, oh, you won't believe what happened on this hole. It was crazy. And, oh man, if I didn't miss those 7 putts, I would have shot 20 down. Like, sure. It's a lot of putts to be like, but yeah, a lot of funny stories. And like, that's what this whole sport is. And you meet people down there. And I think it's particularly amazing because everyone is coming from somewhere else when you go to a Worlds, any kind of Worlds. And it's that storytelling of, well, my community's like this, and what's yours like, and do you do this, and do you do that? Like, I posted on the Canadian Hub because I wanted to know what people's ace traditions were. Like, back home, if you have never aced, you don't have to do anything. But if you're playing with your buddies and someone aces, everyone pays you $5. But you're not in it unless you've aced, right? We're not going to take your $5 every week unless you're in the club. So we want to make sure people feel like they're part of it, but then also like it's kind of a tradition. I mean, if you're playing a tournament, you get the ace pool. We're not doing the $5, but there's a lot of places that are like, I'll buy you a case of beer. Or if you get an ace, you owe everyone a beer. Like, crazy stuff. So it's just cool to like share those stories and talk about like those kind of things. And I mean, a while back it was, what does your community throw? Because our community is mostly Innova, and this community is mostly Prodigy. We really don't have any Gateway or any like there's so many brands now, but it's just cool to like hear about that. The one consistent thing is everyone loves Bergs. That's every community has a weird cult-like group of Berg lovers. Yes, I don't know any of those.
Darryl wants to record that. That's the first time he's gotten confirmation on his obsession.
There's you guys
so
are
many things. Yeah, I get
you guys
tagged
are like
in
a
so
cult.
many things where people are. Yeah, well, maybe we are.
Think of Travis Bouchard right there, Darryl.
Yeah.
And you know what? With that, Colleen, you mentioned the Berg. So much so that you're right. There is this underlying cult, and they come up and they show their heads once in a while. And most recently, is they're talking at one of our local hard-wooded private courses called Wildman. They're looking to have a Berg only round there. You can bring as many Bergs as you want, but that's all you're throwing.
Yeah, so I've actually heard this is pretty popular in the later time of the year, like October or November, and people will make those all Berg tournaments. That's actually how I started. Well, I don't bag a Berg, but I have thrown it because my buddy was like, "We're doing an all Berg round. You have to come. I'll loan you one, and you can try it." And like, it was a great disc and everything, but yeah, it was funny because like this whole group was so pumped to just throw this one disc. And I'm sitting there like, man, it sure is nice having my back not hurt, but like I miss my discs. But yeah,
I don't know why. I mean, it's such a versatile disc.
You would say that.
Yeah, well, maybe.
Yeah.
That's
that's why you should go. That's why you got to go, is you got to tell all the people the stories of your community and hear all about theirs. Hear about their round
and find
tell you
other
about
Berg
theirs.
lovers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then you guys can start a Facebook group and just post Berg memes all the time.
We can all self-hug each other. Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, Colleen, one of the things we think about growing the sport is making sure that when our players and our guests that we have on, we want to talk about your sponsors. So let's touch base with them a little bit and make sure they get some love. So one of your sponsors is T3, and I don't know much about T3. I think you said that your sponsors were local, so tell us about that.
Yeah. T3 is they're the Toronto Tag Tour. So it's 3 T's.
Right.
So creative. I love it. they're it's like kind of what you get with like a lot of mostly local sponsorships is like it's a guy, in this case not a store or anything, he's just literally a guy who wanted to do tags. And one of the things when he started disc golf was in Toronto, like I live outside Toronto but in the GTA, but in Toronto, the core of it, there's a few courses. They're all kind of their own unique community. There's the Island, Centennial's mostly like on the West End, and then you've got E.T. Seton, which is like downtown, right by the Science Center. And so he wanted something that connected all three. He wanted to do tags because a lot of the clubs didn't do tags. So he just came up with it, and basically the reason why he wanted it to catch on was just to promote community, like very he's not motivated by anything other than just like making a community. So that, and he started to do last year and this year a lot of like little throw up events. So he came to like clubs. He'd come to like a club like Seton, Centennial, and Toronto, and he'd just like do a barbecue that day. He wouldn't even play, he'd just like come and barbecue for everyone. Or they do a putting league in Toronto, and so every year we do Silly Putt, and they rent out a brewery and do a big putting competition. It's like 80 people come and stuff, and it's great. But just like kind of more building that community of the entire community of Toronto instead of it just being like these little sections. So Jacob's really brought together a bunch of kind of like the big supporters of those kind of things, people who are constantly out helping or running leagues or whatever, and big names, people who are promoting things. There's not generally like a basis for how he's picking people other than that. And like, but like I said, at the core, it really is just like every other local place where it's like mostly people Jacob's friends with and stuff like that. So we get a bunch of pockets of that, and like most of them are based on stores, right? We have Gripped and Ripped, and those are all Spencer and Max friends and people in their community, and like they branch out as they meet people, but really you're not going to just randomly put someone on a team. So yeah, just I think the basis though was just build the community of Toronto, and I do go to a significant amount of their stuff. We have the Greater Toronto area, we have the GTA Cup, where the 4 core clubs play against each other, so I captain my team. And then like I go to their East End Putting League all the time, and all the Timmel and Toronto Open and all that. So Jacob added me to the team just, as like someone who's kind of a liaison of the area, get more people out into Toronto and like come travel for the league and stuff like that. So he's doing a lot in that community, I think, bringing them together, and, only goes up from there. Some of the core people on his team are running some of the leagues out there, and tournaments. So it's really nice to have that support of just a bunch of people cheering you on.
Nice. And that's awesome. So thanks to Jacob putting out all that and making you part of the team. And then you do have another sponsor, and I think Darryl's actually familiar with that second sponsor. Hey, Darryl?
I've seen them on Instagram, yeah. So your other sponsor is She Dyes Her Discs.
Yeah. Actually, I ran down before this so I could grab my bag so I could show you.
Perfect.
Some of their
That's what we like to see.
Yeah, so
those
pretty.
are gorgeous.
And this one will be on tour all year. I love the like rainbowy ones, but they don't do it justice. And honestly, they're phenomenal. They're getting into like stencils and stuff, but I can guarantee you're not going to see the vibrant colors that they get anywhere else. Like they're just amazing with how they can, ensure that their colors don't mix in the wrong way. It's just, they're so beautiful. Yeah. So that was something that happened just earlier this year. And so this is my first time on the team with them. And so they're based out of Barrie. And so they're local to Canadian. If you're looking for some cool dyes, check them out on Instagram. And they're always on the Canadian Disc Golf auction page. So Dave Kelly, when he's posting all those sweet dyes, that's She Dyes Her Discs. Nice. So I know earlier this year he had a big push for some of their factory seconds where they were not so happy with the dye, so they sold them cheaper. But potentially, fingers crossed that it all goes through. I'm working with TopLink this year, not as a sponsorship, but they're just helping hook me up to get a run of discs made. I've had Judge Havoc out of Niagara Falls help design a stamp. Similar to what Sophia and Stu did, and just to raise money for going to Australia for Team Canada and then for nationals and stuff, and offset maybe the issues of me being off work and stuff with my foot. So so that's hopefully going to come out soon, and I'm looking to get some white, as many white as I can, to give them to She Dyes Her so that they can dye them for me and hopefully have like some very, very cool dyes out there with my stamp on them. That would be awesome. So
yeah.
Hopefully
how does that work with She Dyes Her Disc? Do you say I want a trespass and she does the white, you give her the white disc and she dyes it for you, or do you just look on what they have available and just say that's, I like that one? How does that work?
Yeah, both ways. So what they have available, certainly not so much like, hey, can you get me this? It's more so like if they have this and if they don't have it, then I can go find it and get it. But like they're very well connected with TopLink, who is pretty much the distributor in Canada now. So they're able to kind of be able to maybe get better pickings at the whites that come into Canada. So they maybe have a little connection there. Not that they're, doing anything nefarious, but they do have lots of variety. And I actually have a stack of 4 that I have to give to Dave to dye because they're like their backups I'd actually been, this is really funny, but I met them last year in person, and I had been talking to them about, I was like, I'm trying to do this thing where our club always has this tie-dye tournament every September, and I'm trying to do like an all-dye bag. So I'm trying to find every disc I have and dye it. And I don't dye. So I was like, I'm going to come to you with a stack. And then this year they were like, oh, we want to sponsor you. And I was like, yes, this is like the only sponsorship I wanted. So I was so excited. But yeah, it was like a match made in heaven. So they're not to mention some of the most wonderful people. Dave's on the board for Barry and doing some really great things with the community there. So it's twofold. When you're supporting them, you're supporting the community as well. And so they're amazing.
And you mentioned TopLink there. Obviously, we have a connection to TopLink, and a guest that we had on the show a few episodes ago, Carrie Neal.
Yes. She's helping me.
Oh, there you go. Perfect. Yeah, I forget exactly what her job role is, but I know that she's working with TopLink now. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's working on something for nationals, right, Jeremy?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, and she's I don't know all her roles because I'm sure she has way more than that. But when you connect with them about getting a run of discs, like say you're doing a tournament, need a stamp run, that's who you're going to be connecting with, I think, from here on out. So she's kind of transitioning into that role, but I think she probably has other things she does for them too. I have no idea, but yeah. So she's helping me with
She did mention that if anybody was in the lineup for some jerseys, she worked with them and she had a good connection that way. So that's what I think she's doing for nationals there, because she requested your size when you signed up for nationals. So that was kind of a sneak peek that she gave us there.
For TCO, we're not sure if it's nationals, but for TCO, they're doing jerseys for the
TCO. Sorry, my mistake.
For the players packs.
Yeah.
Oh, that's exciting. I wonder, is TopLink sourcing those, or are they getting them from someone? Because Diameter makes apparel. I don't know if TopLink does. I wasn't sure.
Maybe they've just got all the connects, is what it is.
That's what
maybe,
it is.
Yeah. Because if it's Diameter, I have to say Diameter is like next level apparel, which is also local. That's Guelph. So just an hour from us. And Luke has been really breaking into the pro scene, trying to get all those pros. So he's got, my favorite pro is Germ, and he's got a whole line of Germ shirts. But yeah, if you're looking for great shirts, like not sponsored, but they are awesome.
Not sponsored yet.
Yes.
Oh,
and speaking of
no.
not sponsored yet, we can say, Colleen doesn't currently have a plastic sponsor. So anyone out there listening, is there a plastic sponsor we should be directing this podcast towards, Colleen?
I have not ever applied, which a fun fact for a lot of amateurs out there who don't know, that more often than not, it does. Actually, I should just say it never falls into your lap ever with a manufacturer, ever. They're not, unless you win amateur worlds, they're not coming up to you. So, sometimes there will be a weird, I know I watched Terry's, and I know she mentioned how some of her sponsors were people she met on Instagram. And that does happen for sure. But I've had some opportunities I didn't pursue. Like I met the guys in RPM the first time I went to Worlds and out from New Zealand. And they had given me a few discs to try and said let us know what you think. And I was like, I don't really want to commit to anything. And it's a lot of that. I don't think I'm good enough to be sponsored. Especially back then.
Come on.
Well, I mean, everyone thinks that, right? Do I really belong? It's not, I'm not even on tour or, yeah. So, I mean, if I was to get anything right now, I do throw a lot of, thought space discs, and I mean, I'm not I thought about it a lot, and I even wrote out an application for them this year, and I had broken my foot So it was like, all that stuff of like, do I really want to join a team with like expectations that I play? Because that's what it is too. There is expectations. Yeah. You throw X amount of discs of theirs, that you participate in like say 10 to 15 A or B tiers. Like there's requirements of how much you played. There might even at that point be a requirement that I do play Disc Golf Pro Tour events, and like not all of them, right? Like they'd be like, play 1 or 2 or whatever. So it's tough to meet those requirements when you're traveling from another country and you're not really sure about how committed you want to be that year, how much you're doing. And of course I play every weekend, but I'm not going to do what Chantel's doing right now. I'd love to go hop on for 4 or 5 events, but it's getting harder and harder to do that. And without sponsorship, it's almost impossible now. So it's a lot of expectations to have to change your bag. I've seen countless girls in FPO get on a sponsorship and just trash their game. And, particularly throwing discs that they just don't know well enough. They are trusting the numbers too much. I know they've gotten so much better. I don't want to trash Prodigy, but back in the day, Prodigy had the most overstable shit. You couldn't find anything that would flip over for you, and you're just like, well, I guess I just suck. But having to switch to something that's not what you're used to it's very impactful. And I think the longer I play, the harder it is for me to buy into completely going with one company. I think that's it's kind of evident now on the Pro Tour. We're actually hearing people announce now, like this year, that they're going unsponsored or that they're going open bag. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Infinite Disc has made that possible with a lot of players, and like there's like them and Lone Star, they do this open bag, but we also have our own discs. But it really is supporting a company, and it's getting more appealing to a lot of players. And it's the furthest thing from what Innova and DD and, Discraft want. But it is ultimately better because having to commit to one disc manufacturer is so limiting sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah. I think especially as a woman.
Yeah.
Right.
Daryl, if I can say it, I want to put out there, and I'll let you go there, but I'm going to put this out there. So Thought Space, we have the Canadian Disc Golf Tour winner, FPO. We have the best performer, actually, maybe second place at Canadian Nationals, but first Canadian at Nationals. Give her open bag percentage, whatever she wants. Let her play Canadian events because that's where she wants to be. And then you've got a great person to join, Proctor and Gilbert and all your other players. So if you're listening, step up here. What do you guys say, Daryl?
I was just going to, two things I was just going to say. One thing, just touching on what you said. We've already got arguably the best MPO Canadian sponsored by Thought Space. So we've got Thomas Gilbert on the team. So it would only make sense to have arguably one of the best FPO players on the team as well. But what I did want to say, what it comes down to more is I watched Colleen's In the Bag, and I think it was from 2016. I think it was. I can't remember the exact year. But what it comes down to is that if she goes to a certain sponsor, she's not going to be able to bag that sweet big germ Thunderbird anymore, unless like you said, she goes percentage. I did notice the video that I watched. You had 2 Thunderbirds, and one of them was your big germ. And you mentioned that he's your favorite player. And I believe you have a couple of his shirts as well. So, you've got to leave a bit of space to keep that Thunderbird in there, Jeremy.
Makes sense.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, Colleen, having an open bag would be great for this next part because you would hate to be really restricted on what Daryl's got coming for you next.
Well, Colleen, if you've watched the episode, you must know what's coming next.
The desert island.
Now it's time for desert island discs. Picture this. You've taken a relaxing cruise, however the ship goes down. You manage to swim to an island. And fortunately for you, there's an 18-hole disc golf course. Which 3 discs are you taking with you on the island?
This is
a segment so good it has its own intro.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, so as you're probably aware, and I always explain it every week, we used to limit it to putter, mid-range driver. We've blown that out of the water. which 3 discs do you think you're going to take with you on this fictitious island that everybody likes to invent the weather conditions and the course and every other things that go with it? But which 3 discs are you picking?
Oh, this is I don't think I can beat Brian's spiel last week. He just made so many good reasons why. But I thought of a good reason why. I thought of 2 of the discs, and then I was like, thought of a good reason why, and then I was like, okay. So my Envy, it's a Glow Envy. So MVP.
Okay, yeah.
And then my Truth, it's a Lucid Truth, not an EMAC Truth. Almost all you can find these days is EMAC Truths, which I love Eric, but not necessarily the stability that I'm looking for. I particularly have a reason for all 3. And then my Escape, and it's a Lucid Escape. Oh. Or sorry, it's a Fusion Truth and a Lucid Escape. So the Fusion is like the not see-through, and then the Escape is see-through. Yeah.
Right.
And all 3 is because they are the easiest discs for me to throw straight. And I mean like just straight. And I think this is different for everyone. So when people are like, what's your straightest disc? It's always funny because like nobody agrees. They're all pretty close. They're all like, oh yeah, I could see how like the buzz is similar to the Truth or whatever. But it's very much personal. And so the other reason too is they are all my most ace discs. So I've got like aces on all 3 of them, and I have 2. I have 1 ace on the Escape. I have 2 on the Envy, and 3 or 4 on the Truth now. Actually, I might have more on the Truth. I don't even know. I stopped writing them on.
Wow.
You ran out of room, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, if you want to,
what it must be like to lose count of how many aces you have with how many discs.
Oh no, not another one.
Yeah.
I got an ace on Sunday at club, and I didn't even take a picture because I felt so embarrassed to be like the guys on my card to be like, hey, can you take a picture of me so I can post this? So I was just like, oh, cool. And then I walked away, and like, after I was like, damn, I should have just gotten them to take a picture, but yeah. Trying to be nonchalant about it.
Yeah. Okay, that leads me back to your in the bag video, because you mentioned something and I had to watch it a few times because I didn't quite catch what you said, and maybe I'm reading too much into it. But you had something you pulled out, and they were ace minis or ace. It was in a blue container. And I forget exactly what you called them, but you said everyone needs an ace mini for when you ace, or it was an ace something. I forget what you said. I couldn't quite hear what you said. You kind of said it quite quickly. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
I don't remember. No, I think that was when I was...
It's not something that's important then.
Well, if anyone wants to check it out and find out what we're talking about, I think it was when I was with True North, maybe. So it might still be on their YouTube.
I'll message you again. Yeah, we'll get to the bottom of it.
We got to find out something. Yeah. An ace tracker. Some sort of ace tracker. Got to keep track of those.
That's what it was, an ace tracker, yeah. Oh, okay, I see what it was now. An ace tracker as in tracking how many aces you got. Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah.
I have a friend who's written down every single ace, which I think is a great idea, but sometimes it's like, I mean, if you don't have an ace, it can be a while. Yeah. But then even when you do ace, it can be a while. Like, I think it was like 2 years or something before I aced a second time.
Right.
So, you know, it can be few and far between, or it can be like, I mean, I aced a few weeks ago, and then I just aced last week, and then it's like, you know, they just keep coming, and then all of a sudden another year, and you get none. So...
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well,
that's what it is, Jeremy. I'm just on my ace baron streak right now. It'll come one day.
Yeah, then they'll come in a whole bunch in a row.
Exactly. They won't be able to stop.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to bring it back to the Desert Island Disc for a minute because, as you said, Brian took it from a whole different angle where he was, you know, going to be chopping up things with one of his discs. But I think, you know, your discs actually fall right into that kind of category too, because I'm thinking, you said it was a Glow Envy.
Yeah.
So when night falls, you're going to have some light that you can have to kind of get around the island. I'm thinking you've got a truth there. So if some nefarious person or possibly nefarious person shows up on the disc, you can get the truth out of them with that disc. And if you're done on the island and you just don't want to be there anymore, you can escape.
Oh, that's great. That's lovely.
Well played, Jeremy.
I love that.
So, Colleen, that brings us to the end of what we had for you. And thank you so much for giving us all this time. It's fantastic. We could probably talk to you for another hour, I'm sure. But before we let you go, is there anything else that you wanted to shout out or mention that we haven't talked about yet? This is kind of your time on the show.
Oh, yeah. I do really want to give a big shout out to, this is a very big national effort, the Canadian Women's Events. We've had kind of a situation in Ontario where our Women's Global event falls on a weekend that's just tragic and not anyone's fault, but it sucks. And the tournament that I'm playing is Foxwood. So it's not even possible to make it a Women's Global event because you have to add like 20 divisions or something. So kind of sucks. So it's very nice to have had this last year. And now is falling into, it sounds like they're going to do it every year, where we have this group of women all across Canada who are making these events possible. It's a 6-week period, I think. And I think it's 6 weeks. And so any event that anyone is hosting, just think of it as like when the Women's Global event is in May, like that May 13th or whenever Mother's Day is, for 6 weeks. So if you have an event that could possibly facilitate all of the women's divisions, doesn't mean they're all going to fill up, but you have to offer them all. We would love to have you as a Canadian women's event. And I'm not on the committee, but a lot of local women here, I know there's a lot of women all across Canada who have joined up on this. And there's particularly a lot of women who have joined up as TDs and maybe their first time TDing because of the support they're getting from these women. So it's just one of those endeavors that I think it was a good idea, but it has become so much more important to the community and how it has grown the sport in ways, we didn't anticipate how many female TDs we would get out of this. That has opened up so much. So, and I think also the friendships that are made, this helps with things like the Canadian Pro Tour, right? Like if we do something like that, having these people who are connections throughout this TD ship across Canada is huge. So that I want to give a lot of love to, particularly Andrea too, out here locally, and Mindy. So thanks to all of those women on that board and all of the women who have run events for that. So that's a big thing that I'm very proud of our country for coming together for. So hopefully we can do that for our tours too.
Awesome. No, that's fantastic. Darryl loves his sound effects there too, Colleen. That's for sure. He's like a kid in a candy shop when those.
Perfect. That was so good.
So thank you so much. You're welcome on any time again. We loved having you, and good luck this year. And hopefully, maybe you get out to a tournament out west and we can catch up with you.
Yeah, and thank you so much for having me. I hope this becomes huge. You guys are doing wonderful things. I've heard a few of your highlights. Check it out, and I've actually watched a few of your videos to check out some of the women I've been hearing about. So really awesome, and thank you for the work you guys do. So looking forward to hearing more, and thank you for bringing it out to Ontario.
Oh, you bet.
Perfect. We'll have you on again. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks.
Thanks, Colleen.
Thanks, Colleen.
Darryl, we just had the most epic FPO player in Canada here. Or one of them at least, right?
Yeah,
one of them. We've had so many epic ones, but we had another one. We had the most epic one we've ever had from Ontario, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's really awesome that, we're growing. We say we're always trying to grow the sport. We're trying to grow the knowledge of disc golf, but, we're growing our podcast. We're growing our audience. So, we're reaching out. We're reaching far and wide. And I just love the fact that we're able to talk to these great players and get inside their minds. And yeah, definitely, hopefully I can absorb some of this positivity and take it out into the course, and hopefully it'll raise my game as well. But even if it doesn't, what a great interview. What a great, lots of stories that she had and great insight into the game.
Yeah. And she was so gracious with her time, because the one thing I'm realizing as we talk to these guests is I don't know what we're going to do, but we just have so much we want to ask. We're always like working on our outline and going, okay, what are we going to talk about? And then, 2 hours fly by and we're like, we still got an hour left we could talk about. But
exactly. Yeah. We need to really look at the outline and the summaries that we do, because we lay it out and we're like, okay, this is going to take 15 minutes. This is going to take 30 minutes. That'll be about an hour and a half. And then, like you said, an hour and a half to 2 hours in, and we're only halfway through the script. You're thinking, okay, well, I don't know what we're going to leave out, but we're going to have to, But no, she was very gracious with her time. And like you said, being out on the East Coast as well, it's late enough for us to record as well, but for her being out there, and we just really appreciate it.
Yeah, maybe at some point it'll be episode 20, part A, episode 20, part B.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That kind of thing. But yes, thanks to Colleen for coming on. That was fantastic. I can't, I've been loving watching her, because the one thing we've talked about as we've started this podcast, and you and I have really paid a lot of attention. We give Park Pro a lot of love on this podcast. And part of that reason is because they're giving us that coverage. And watching that coverage has helped me feel like I'm starting to know who these players are. And now that they're coming on the show and we're finding out even, like, I'm just, this is it. Like, who cares what's going on in the Disc Golf Pro Tour? I don't even care. This is what I care about.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I mean, dare I say that it kind of goes hand in hand. Whereas, when you're watching the Park Pro coverage, you're seeing them playing their disc golf game. You're getting to know them as a disc golfer. You're watching them. You see who's good, who's bad, what shots they're playing, things like that. But yet, when we get them on the podcast and we interview them, we can talk about the disc golf side of it, sure. But we can also talk about, how did you get into disc golf? What do you do in your spare time? Like, how do you train for events? What do you do in the off season? All those sort of things. So we really get to know individual players. So it's
well,
awesome.
That's what I kind of found too with Colleen there, as we were like, okay, we'll talk about the Canadian Disc Golf Tour event, but then she always had like a great story, and I was like, okay, back to the Disc Golf Tour event.
How many times do we have to say that? Well, I just want to bring it back. Because we didn't actually finish our questions, but
So we, what that really tells us is just that, placing and winning and all those things, like that's, you could tell just from what she was talking about, that's nice to have, but it doesn't seem like that's the primary goal. The primary goal is building those relationships, building the sport, building it in Canada, building it for women. So, she's doing it for all the right reasons, and she happens to play well as a result.
Yeah. No, another fine interview, another great interview, Jeremy. I don't know how we're going to keep topping these every week, but
we've talked about making like for in between weeks with our episodes of putting clips together, like maybe clips of bloopers or something like that. But maybe we need to be a clip of everyone is like, I don't know how we're going to top it next week. I don't know how we're going to do it next week.
Ask editor how he's going to put all those things together.
Yes.
And the producer.
We'll put a note, to that producer or intern that we're working on.
Yeah.
All right. Well, to not extend this too long, do you want to just blast through a few things before we end the episode?
Well, we should. Yeah, we should absolutely blast through it, because one of the things that we've talked about in the past is that, we aim for around 2 hours. Sometimes if it's a little bit longer, if the content is there, we don't mind going a little bit long. But we have heard that sometimes on certain episodes, we've gone maybe a little bit too long, and it's like, okay, when are these guys going to end? So we should blast through it. I see what the next thing you have in the script here, so we should probably address that before we go any further.
Yeah. Oh, yes. The next thing in the script is... Secret word.
Why did we
actually? You're gonna have a sound bite for that before I know it. You'll be pressing the button again. Secret word.
Okay, so what are we gonna do? I think. What did we?
I know what we should do.
I know what we could do. Okay, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Well, I was going to say it should be Berg, if we're going to give the Berg that much love this episode. But if you don't want to do that, what do you want to do?
It could be Cat's Forbidden Banana. I think that's... I don't know how you're going to put that into a sentence, but I really like Cat's Forbidden Banana. Was it? No, Holly. Holly. Sorry.
Holly, yeah.
Holly's forbidden banana.
All right.
You want to go
I
for
don't know.
that?
Our listeners have been doing well, so challenge accepted, eh? Or
there
challenge not accepted. Challenge put out there. Do you accept it?
Yeah, there you go. And if it turns out that people, hey, you know what? I'll make it easy. You don't have to put all three words in the same. You don't have to put all three words together. As long as your sentence or your paragraph contains Holly's forbidden banana, then we'll know that you listened to the end of the podcast. So yeah.
All right. So I'm going to hit three things real quick, and we're going to end it after that. So the three things I wanted to hit was, one, local tournaments are starting to open up. So anybody in the Edmonton area, in the Alberta area, watch your disc golf scene. A lot of dates are coming up for tournaments, and just keep in mind that although the first date is coming, it's not always for everyone. Sometimes it's for the protected divisions and for the sponsors, but it's now time to watch disc golf scene closely if you want to get in some of these tournaments that are going to fill up fast. One of the tournaments that's opened right now is Wally's 100. It's open to protected divisions, it's going to open to sponsors, and it's going to open up to everyone. That is to celebrate Wally O'Volley's 100th tournament as a tournament director, and it's going to be a 3-day event out at Hidden Gem in Athabasca, and I've played that course. It is fantastic. So if you can make it out there, it's going to be a fun time and a big celebration of everything Wally's done for the sport. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
So that's one.
Yeah.
Two.
One down.
You hit two.
Two. Are we talking about spring runoff?
Yes.
Spring runoff. Yeah, that's another event that we're looking forward to this year. We've signed up already. As of recording, there is only 21 spots left to sign up for. So if you're thinking about getting down there for spring runoff, if you're undecided, if you're sitting on the fence, definitely go have a look at it on Disc Golf Scene. Hopefully there's still spots available by the time you hear this. Come down. It's in Lethbridge, 3-day event, May long weekend, 2 different courses. So yeah, if you're looking to broaden your disc golf game, try some new tournaments outside of the Edmonton area or outside of whichever area you're currently listening to this in, spring runoff is one of those.
Yes. And with that, we've been talking to a lot of people, and we think we're going to have like a 12-person practice round at this point because
right.
we want to meet up with everybody when we get there.
Yeah. And we're also having a drink and a meal with everybody as well. So I don't think I'll be in any state to play after on the first night. But
well, as Brian and Colleen have both proven, having a few pops before a round actually goes well.
Well, I don't know. Does it go well? I don't want to break my ankle.
Right.
I don't want to hurt myself.
That's it. Okay. And then the third thing we just wanted to shout out is that we're very excited to see that Noah Higgins is back up and posting content, and he's starting to putt, and he's throwing in the basement, and he's getting ready to start the tournament season. I think he had, what did he put today? Was it 10 days until tournament season for him? So whatever his first event
his tournament starts. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, it's good to see him, like you say, up and about, up and throwing. Looking good. We wish the best for him, and hopefully he continues to improve.
So yeah, so that's going to wrap us up. But the only thing I think we have to talk about is you looked a little surprised. I didn't know that we hadn't talked that Wildman is going to have an Alberga tournament.
Awesome. Yeah.
Tim Plamondon and Matt LeLacheur from Wildman are working to put that together. From what I understand, it's going to be from the forward tees, the red tees. So it's going to make it at least a little bit more realistic.
Yeah. Because that Berg is well known for how far it can glide, right? So
yes,
it would have to be the forward tees.
But you know what though, Darryl? I think for you, know what I'm just picturing, and maybe you can tell us about it, is you're going to go out there with, what did you have, like 7 or 8 Bergs that you have?
6 or 7, yeah.
Yeah, you're going to pick your favorite one on hole 18.
Is it just one Berg you're allowed, or can I?
Oh, I think you can bring every one you want.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
But on hole 18, you're going to pick one of them. And if you remember hole 18,
I remember hole 18. So that big downhill.
Yeah.
Pretty much, what is it? 300 foot straight with a slight hook at the end.
Yeah, a little bit of a hyzer throw, a backhand hyzer if you're a right-hand player.
Perfect hole for a Berg.
Yeah. So what would happen if you throw a Berg on that hole?
Well, I'd be standing up on the tee pad. I'd be looking straight down the fairway. I would line up the Berg. It's an overstable disc anyway, so I would try and throw it flat. It would glide. It would glide all the way down there. It would get the heat lift from the fairway. it would glide all the way down there, and then just a little bit of slight right to left turn at the end.
Yeah.
It would come crashing down into those chains. But because I threw it, you know what it would do.
Oh, really? Because you'd throw it, it would do that?
Well, yeah, because, I haven't had an ace yet. So there's only one thing it would do.
And that would be chainout.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. I'm
Thanks
not ready
for joining
again.
us.
I haven't got the episode. I'm going to keep talking, Jeremy.
Okay, I'll keep talking. We'll see you next time. We're excited. Okay. Episode 21 will be coming. But until then,
bye-bye.
Bye-bye.